we talk, not permanent.
They won't hurt anything you leave on. They'll be able to hold sound back there.
Are we ready?
Okay.
All right. Good morning, El Dorado County. Today is Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, and I call to order the regular meeting of the El Dorado County Board of Supervisors. Special thanks to the city of South Lake Tahoe as we're in the South Lake Tahoe City Council chambers for the meeting today. Leading us with the invocation this morning is Rabbi Lauren Ben Shozan. I hope I pronounced it right, of the Temple of Bat-Am.
Is the rabbi here?
Is the rabbi here?
Or online?
We're gonna maybe join by Zoom.
We're looking online.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. So my name is Rabbi Lauren Ben Shoshan. I recognize that we're the only ones with that last name in town. It means son of a rose. Thank you so much for having me today. So we'll begin with the invocation, if that's okay. Does that work?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Fantastic. So every year, the Jewish people engage in a sort of book club. Specifically, we reread the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, one portion at a time, 1 week at a time. And this week, we happen to be in the middle of Leviticus. For those of us not up to date on our biblical book club reading, Leviticus is often considered a rather boring book. It covers such scintillating topics as what to do with house mold and building maintenance, and how to maintain our land equitably and in a way that supports everyone in our society. And what do we do when someone makes, shall we say, a rather large mistake? How do we manage the repair that needs to happen as a result? And how do we cultivate a community that functions well? In short, from where I sit, Leviticus looks a lot like our town council agenda here today. But the lessons of Leviticus are not about the specific techniques used to maintain these issues. Rather, it is a lesson that this kind of work, too, is holy, enabling our community to function well, to repair and to grow, to be a place in which each of us has an opportunity to thrive is holy. And to internalize this lesson that our community works better when we keep in mind our ultimate goal, to live in gentle, caring peace with one another. This goal sounds easy, and yet, as every council member here can attest, it is not simple. It is one in which we try our hardest, not always succeeding, but certainly always attempting to cultivate a community that works as best as we can make it. And that trying to get these details right is a part of that holiness. So before I recite what I promise is a relatively short blessing to inaugurate our meeting, I want to express my gratitude. Thank you to every single representative and community worker here today, from our police department to our transit authorities, to our council members and administrators, to each and every one of our citizens. Thank you for caring about creating and cultivating a community that works well for each and every one of us. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for making the effort, because that is truly what is holy. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot b'inyanei kehillah kedusha shelanu. Blessed are you, our God, mystery of creation, who has sanctified us by your holy commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves with the matters of our holy community. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi. Appreciate it. We'll now move into the Pledge of Allegiance. Supervisor Lane, will you please lead us?
Please join me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, El Dorado County, to another regular session of the Board of Supervisors, and thank you for joining us here today in South Lake Tahoe. As a reminder, we limit public comment to 3 minutes to allow enough time for everyone to have their voices heard. We'll now move the adoption of the agenda and approval of the consent calendar. At this time, does any of the board Members have any comments or changes? District 1?
No, I don't.
District 5?
No changes, sir.
District 3?
No changes.
District 4?
No changes.
And I have no changes. We'll now open it up to public comment.
We are now taking public comment specifically regarding the consent calendar. Individuals will have 3 minutes to address the board. The timer will notify you when you have 30 seconds remaining, and again, when your time is up. Public comment will be taken first from those participating in the boardroom, and then from those participating through Zoom. For those participating by Zoom, please make sure you unmute yourself when called upon. If you're joining by phone, press *9 to indicate a desire to comment. If you're joining by Zoom, press the raise hand button. Please voluntarily state your name for the record. Now taking public comment from the boardroom.
Any comments?
up.
Come on up.
On the consent calendar.
Yeah. Just on the consent calendar, yes.
I'm not on the calendar. I asked if I should announce myself. I'm just a citizen, and I would like to speak on corruption in the El Dorado County Jail and torture.
That'll be in a few minutes.
few
We'll do
minutes.
open forum.
An open forum,
Right, thank
yeah. This is just on the consent.
Seeing no additional public comment from the boardroom, now taking public comment from online participants. Taking public comment from Lee Tannenbaum.
Good morning, supervisors. Just want to clarify, is this for the consent calendar and the agenda, or the consent calendar only?
Consent calendar only.
Okay, I will wait then.
Okay. All right.
Now taking public comment from Sue.
Hi, so this is approval of the agenda and the consent calendar, correct? And I just had a concern on 29. It seems like there's too much packed into that, and I'm hoping that, I know you're not going to change anything today, but it seems like that needs to be, there's quite a few deep discussions buried into that item. So, and on the actual item that's on the 29, on the paperwork, or on what public sees, there's a lot of things in that discussion that aren't on the agenda stated. So I would hope that some of that, such as, I think there needs to be a deeper discussion about road capacity and how these parcels, you know,
It's item 29, it'll be coming up, Sue.
right, but it's approving the agenda and approving that
Talk about
item.
it.
A lot of
It's an
stuff packed
agendized
into it.
item. We'll
It's
talk
a,
about it.
yeah, it's an agendized
I'm not
item.
talking about the item, I'm just saying there's too much in it to be one item. Thank you.
All right, that's fine.
Chair Lee Tannenbaum has his hand raised
No.
again.
He wants
No.
to say the same thing. He
Yeah.
already posted it
We
online.
already posted online, so.
Now taking public comment from Chris.
I'm also confused because this says adoption of the agenda and approval of the consent calendar. That's what we're speaking on. I believe that it's been misstated that this is only the consent calendar that we're speaking about. So I again believe that the board should state that that's what this is all about, and not let people believe it's only on the consent calendar. Those are my comments. Thank you.
There's
Yeah,
no additional public comment.
Right, and I'll just restate that. I made an error on that, and it's about what was on consent and about the previous agenda, so. All right, so let's move on. So I'll close public comment, bring it back to adoption of the board and approval. Any more changes or anything?
Move.
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
All right.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, so at this time, we're going to actually move to open forum, actually at 9 a.m. today, instead of the unusual 1 p.m. Open forum is a time for the comment, any item that is not on the agenda today. So open it up to open forum.
We are now taking public comments specifically regarding open forum. Individuals will have 3 minutes to address the board. The timer will notify you when you have 30 seconds remaining, and again, when your time is up. Public comment will be taken first from those participating in the boardroom, and then from those participating through Zoom. For those participating by Zoom, please make sure you unmute yourself when called upon. If you're joining by phone, press *9 to indicate a desire to comment. If you're joining by Zoom, press the raise hand button. Please voluntarily state your name for the record. Now taking public comment from the room.
Hi, my name is Kyle McDonald. I'm a resident of Pollock Pines, California. I'm here to speak on corruption and torture and the lack of medical treatment by WellPath, the medical authority in your El Dorado County Jail. Sorry, I have to use both of my pairs of glasses. I broke my prescription readers. On 9/11/23, I was wrongly incarcerated in Placerville Jail for 17 months, inmate ID 123465. Throughout the 17 months, Lieutenant Jail Commander Jonathan Eslick, Administrative Sergeant Nicholas Milbank, and Lieutenant Payne violated my First Amendment right to petition the County of El Dorado for redress of grievances by physically altering the jail's grievance form, removing the right of all pretrial detainees to grievance unethical and illegal rules and policies. By altering the jail's grievance form, removing the right to grievance unethical, illegal rules and policies, Lieutenant Eslick, Payne, and Administrative Sergeant Milbank violated the First Amendment right of every pretrial detainee in both the Placerville and Lake Tahoe jails. Furthermore, both Lieutenant Eslick and Sergeant Milbank fabricated two minimum violations against myself in order to combine them into one major violation. So that would allow them to confiscate all of my commissary and starve me. I then went on a 6-day hunger strike in your Placerville County Jail, and on the second day was taken to Marshall Hospital in atrial fibrillation with a 180 blood pressure. After returning from the hospital, I continued my hunger strike for 5 more days, which led me to being found on the floor of my cell in D-Pod number 11 by Officer Spillane, passed out and vomiting. The hunger strike was to protest the civil rights violations by the sergeants and lieutenants and Captain Thompson at the jail. I feel I need to point out that Captain Thompson routinely, who is actually the top of the appeal chain for grievances to exhaust administrative remedies, routinely refuses to respond to pretrial detainees' grievances, and she does this. So when and if the detainees file a 42 U.S.C. 1983 suit against the county attorney can make a motion to dismiss for failure to properly exhaust administrative remedies under the Prison Litigation Reform Act. Per the Inmate Orientation Handbook, page 9, section C, Captain Thompson has 20 days to reply to pretrial detainees' grievance appeals. The first 2 appeals that she replied to, after I grievanced her saying that she was not replying to any appeals, were 60 days after I appealed to her from the lieutenant, the second level. On January 25th, I had a bail review
Your 3
here
minutes is
in
up.
Department 2
minutes
with
is
the
up.
Honorable Judge.
Thank you.
Oh,
Your
my
3
time's
minutes
up.
is up.
Okay, I thought it was 30 seconds.
No.
Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Seeing no additional public comment from the boardroom, now taking public comment from online participants. There is no additional public comment.
All right, so I'll close open forum. And we'll move to item number 30. US 50 Latrobe Interchange Improvements.
Item 30 comes from the Department of Transportation recommending the board take the following actions related to the US 50 Latrobe Road, El Dorado Hills Boulevard interchange improvements. 1, receive a presentation and update regarding the project. 2, adopt addendum 4 to the final environmental impact report. And 3, approve the project as revised in the addendum to the environmental impact report.
All right, I'd like to open it up.
Good morning, Board, Chair, Dustin Harrington, Transportation. Thanks for having us here this morning in South Lake Tahoe. Beautiful morning. This item is to bring to you a 4th addendum on this project. It's at US 50 and El Dorado Hills, actually Latrobe Road interchange in El Dorado Hills. This is the, we're calling it the remaining quadrant. It's the southeast quadrant of this project that we are looking to improve as part of this as part of this project. We've had 3 addendums previously that were approved by the board in 2005 and 2008, and then most recently in 2014 when we constructed the westbound on and off ramps. So this is the 4th addendum, and this covers what we're calling Phase 2B2, and it's addressing the remaining eastbound on and off ramp improvements, which will complete the ultimate improvements at the interchange that were originally defined in the 2003 EIR. So since this is the first time we're formally bringing this project to you, we prepared a quick slideshow just to give you a quick review of what the project scope entails and some of the other pertinent information. So we'll go ahead and run through that here. You can see here an overview of the project. That's actually a simulated view there, looking westbound at the ramps that were constructed in the last phase. So you can go ahead. Slide. So this is just a quick agenda here, purpose and need. We'll talk about the improvements, next steps, schedule, and Q&A. It's a very quick presentation. So project history, originally the EIR was adopted in 2003. We completed phase 1 in 2006, phase 2A 2012, 2B.1 in 2015, and then this is 2B.2, which we anticipate completion in approximately 2028. This is the remaining component, as I mentioned, of the phased interchange. It's at a very major interchange in El Dorado Hills where US 50 intersects Latrobe Road and, Latrobe Road and El Dorado Hills Boulevard. Purpose is to enhance the operational efficiency, safety, and capacity of the interchange. It will correct existing deficiencies, accommodate future traffic demands, and improve the overall traffic flow. And we've also included some enhanced multimodal facility improvements for bicycle and pedestrians. That was one of the primary comments and concerns that were brought forward to us as we've discussed this project with local groups here, specifically the El Dorado Hills APAC. So the improvements include reconstruction and widening at the eastbound loop off-ramp, as well as the eastbound diagonal on-ramp. Currently, it's the only portion that was never touched, and so we'll be widening that to 2 lanes and providing ramp metering at Caltrans' request. Also adding an additional lane to the northbound El Dorado Hills Boulevard and Latrobe Road segments there north of Town Center Drive. I mentioned the improved bicycle and pedestrian facilities. We'll talk about that in a minute. And we also have some additional drainage and water quality treatment improvements that will be implemented as part of this. So this is a look here at the eastbound off and on ramps. You can see the loop ramp that was constructed years ago when we did, I believe, phase 2B1. That will be realigned and widened slightly. The realignment and improvement work will occur just after the bridge that goes over Latrobe Road there, so there'll be no structure work on that bridge, but we will be pushing the loop out just slightly to accommodate the improvements here at the the eastbound diagonal on-ramp, which will be widened to 2 lanes. We'll also be adding a 4th northbound lane, so that's the blue shaded area northbound on Latrobe Road. That's going to be north of Town Center Boulevard. So blue is basically everything that we're adding. We'll be adding a right turn pocket onto Saratoga Way, Saratoga South, which goes into the Rayleigh Shopping Center. The bike and pedestrian improvements will include a proposed multi-use path. So that's going to be essentially a 12-foot wide path that can accommodate both bikes and peds. This is a challenging area for those users, since we really don't have much on the west side in terms of sidewalks. It's really just a Class 2 bike lane. So pedestrians have been focused on this east portion there. And that's where most of the destinations are, between Town Center and then the Raleigh Shopping Center. And it ties in with the El Dorado Hills Boulevard Class 1 lane further north. So it made sense to focus our improvements on the east side there. As far as pedestrians crossing the two ramps there, we've got a proposed RFB, which is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon at the eastbound off-ramp. And then, of course, it's signalized where the eastbound on diagonal is, which is the existing condition. That signal will be modified to accommodate the improvements. We tried to implement some aesthetic features as part of this. So one of the things, this is a cross-sectional view of the portion there on Latrobe Road that's adjacent to Marketplace at Town Center. There's an existing rockery wall and some landscaping on that slope that's behind the existing sidewalk. And so as part of this improvement, we'll widen that sidewalk and to a multimodal facility that will have a clear width of 12 feet between a type 85 concrete barrier that will separate the pedestrians from vehicular traffic. And it will fit quite snugly there between the roadway. And then we wanted to do what we could to avoid touching the rockery wall or disturbing that, and then the landscaping there at Town Center. So this was kind of a innovative solution that we included as part of this improvements. And we've got, if you notice, the piles there supporting the path. Those will be required to basically preserve the rockery wall, so it's not loaded at all from the path. The path is self-supported with those piles, so that works in preserving the rockery wall and really minimizing disruptions to Marketplace at Town Center and the parking area there. With the type 85 concrete barrier, we wanted to do something that is a little more aesthetically pleasing than just a standard plain face concrete barrier. So this is a newer design that Caltrans is using on many of their structures, and also has been used recently in improvements in downtown Placerville. So it has kind of like a wood-grained relief on it, and as well as staining to give it kind of a timber texture. So we hope that will be aesthetically pleasing to the community as it ties in with the existing improvements there. As part of this EIR addendum, there were various technical studies looked at, of course, the air quality impacts, hazardous waste, initial site assessment. We always look at that. The addendum to the NES, which is the Natural Environmental Study, and then also included Section 106 outreach to the tribes. I should say, it's not on the slides here, but as part of this addendum, it summarized all of the minor changes. The changes that were included in this addendum that really were the addendum differed from the original EIR were very minor in nature. It really had to do with the addition of the multimodal facilities, some very small differences in number of lanes, exact location of some of the highway facilities, and so it's a very minor amendment which is why we were able to use the amendment. But nevertheless, the changes did not, the addendum did not find any substantial or significant changes, and so therefore we don't require a supplemental EIR. Next steps, just as far as the project schedule, so we're talking about the environmental revalidation, the adoption today, which we hope in EIR Amendment number 4. The county is CEQA lead agency. This is a cooperative agreement with Caltrans, since it's a Caltrans facility. We will continue with our engineering studies, finalizing the drainage and stormwater design. The geotechnical design has already been done. There are some retaining walls that will be constructed as part of this project, primarily along the eastbound diagonal ramp right there where Carson Creek is. There's an existing box culvert that we will be needing to work around and preserve in place. So there'll be some walls there. Also, there'll be a retaining wall kind of right where the diagonal on-ramp begins behind the Nugget Market. So those will help preserve existing drainage features in that area. Here's a quick look at the schedule. So we're looking at completing 65% design this summer. We'll have, even though the environmental updates are all complete now, we will have our NEPA revalidation completed in the fall, and that's simply just an administrative issue. It has to do with updating the project description and scope in the MTIP. So that will be a milestone. And then as we move toward the end of the year, early next year, having 95% design, we'll be dealing with our right-of-way acquisition, which we've been working to minimize in terms of businesses in the area, Marketplace at Town Center, obviously, and up there at Saratoga, we want to minimize disruptions to the businesses there. So we're currently looking at our right-of-way mapping right now and preparing for that following this EIR addendum action. And then we've got regulatory permits next year, completing the design by the end of the year, and hoping to begin construction in 2027 and be completed by 2028. And so we have a email address set up, as well as a project website on our county's website. We have a project web page. I will say we did not receive any comments. This does not require a formal circulation because it's an addendum, but we did reach out to local community groups. Like I said, El Dorado Hills, APAC, we attended their meeting on March 12th. Presented basically the same slideshow to them and received positive comments from them about the project. There were some questions and some back and forth about the multimodal facilities, and so we were able to take in some of those comments initially at our first visit to the APAC, and then bring it back to them recently in March and show them what progress we were able to make in negotiating some of these improvements with Caltrans. So we did post the addendum on our county's website just as a courtesy for reference, and have not received any comments. So we're hoping for an adoption by your board this morning on this, and we'll then continue moving forward with delivering this project and getting this thing ready in 2027. So happy to field any questions this morning.
So I'll bring it back to the boards for any comments or questions.
Just a couple clarifying questions. Your photo on page 1 shows 2 lanes on the cloverleaf. There's only one. We're going to have one lane there, right? On the eastbound off?
Yes, yes. The eastbound loop, originally there was a thought that it may require 2 lanes, and I believe that was in the original geometric drawing, and so that was one of the minor changes that was addressed as part of this addendum.
So it's
yeah.
it's going to be 1 lane?
Yes, yeah, that was a concern from the get-go, because if we have 2 lanes, one of Caltrans' primary concerns was were those lanes then merge into Latrobe Road. Weaving was a concern, and so by being able to keep it as 1 lane, it greatly reduces that issue. And fortunately, by pushing this loop out a little bit, we have enough storage on the ramp there across the bridge to be able to keep this as a free-flowing movement. So.
Yeah, okay. And then the crosswalks, they're going to be normal crosswalks, signal with the walking?
Correct.
Are you doing anything special there? I know there was concern in APAC with a couple.
Right, so the crosswalk will be signalized at the diagonal right there, so that's the existing signal that will be modified. Where the ramp comes off, the loop ramp, that will be an RRFB, and so that's similar to what they have at the Forney off-ramp, right by In-N-Out in Placerville, where it's only activated when you have users there, and that's another reason why we modified the geometry and increased a little more sight distance with a tangent there at the end of that loop. And so you'd have the approaching vehicles would have a better view of those panels as to, and if there's pedestrians there when the panels are lit up and flashing. So so those will be the 2 control features at those crossings.
So so a user will be able to push a button to activate the lights. Now, will it be a red light where the traffic's going to actually have to come to a stop, or just those flashing yellow warning lights for pedestrians?
It's the flashing
Okay,
yellow
all right.
warnings at the RRFB, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Dustin, obviously, you guys know that area is prone to heavy stormwater accumulation. Just make sure you take into account that it's an area that backs up or can back up when really heavy rains, that side of the highway as well as upper side. So if the outflow can't handle it, you may be creating a little bit more of a lake there. So just make sure and take that into account. I've seen it flooded before.
Right, and Supervisor Veerkamp, that's a great point. As you probably know or aware, when Nugget was in Town Center was developed, and the earlier phases of this interchange were designed and laid out, there's a parcel that's right there behind Nugget that's kind of been reserved for this project. So we're pursuing purchasing that parcel in whole. When we get to that right-of-way point, we did have our geotechnical engineer perform some percolation testing on the soils there because with Caltrans MS4 requirements, we have to have a certain amount of on-site infiltration. And so fortunately, we have a very large area there that's able to accept a lot of that for on-site infiltration, and then whatever is remaining would then make its way down to Carson Creek. So that's been something that actually has worked out well, having that additional area there that was kind of set aside, in the past for us to now utilize for these stormwater infiltration requirements. So, but yes, it's definitely on our radar.
Okay. Any other comments from the board at this time? All right, I'd like to open it up to public comment on this particular item.
We are now taking public comment specifically regarding item 30. Individuals will have 3 minutes to address the board. The timer will notify you when your time is up. Public comment will be taken first from those participating in the boardroom and then from those participating through Zoom. For those participating by Zoom, please make sure you unmute yourself when called upon. If you're joining by phone, press *9 to indicate a desire to comment. If you're joining by Zoom, press the raise hand button. Please voluntarily state your name for the record.
Anybody in the chambers want to come up and speak on this item? All right,
no
don't
public-
see anybody. Go to Zoom participants,
Okay,
please.
now taking public comment from online participants. Taking public comment from Chris.
Good morning, Board. Dustin, I just have a couple of questions. Is this the long-awaited final improvement for this interchange? Or is because of the age of the interchange, there might be other traffic enhancements planned in other quadrants? So that's my first question. The second is related to the note that this provides enhanced multimodal facilities for bicycle and pedestrians, not to be confused with the multimodal transfer station, which is down the block on the corner of White Rock. And I saw that there's sidewalk that goes all the way down, so it is a generally connected. The connection of the Phase 2B project to the northwest corner of Town Center East. I was looking for a better drawing than just the presentation drawing in the attachments to this item, and there was none. But can you speak to the how the connection of the Phase 2 project and the northwest corner can be done or will be done immediately adjacent to the interchange? Otherwise, people have to go all the way down Latrobe Road to Town Center Boulevard and have to come all the way around. I was just wondering whether there's accommodations and people are cutting through or not cutting through right now. And then the other part of it is certainly the extra lane now going northbound under Highway 50 is something that's been long awaited, and I'm so thankful we're finally constructing it. Thank you for this presentation. I hope you will answer my questions. Thanks.
There is no additional public comment.
All right, Justin, can you come up and answer some of those questions Chris asked?
Yes, so as far as the first question or statement about the final improvements, this is what we consider the final remaining phase of the original project of reconstructing the entire interchange that was, explored and adopted in that 2003 EIR. So this completes everything that was outlined in that project. Moving ahead, 20, 30 years, there may be additional improvements that are required. But as far as this project, this completes everything that was, thought of 25 years ago. So we're happy to close the book on that. Second comment about the multimodal, I think connections is what Chris was referring to, where we're focusing on a segment that's between Saratoga and Town Center Boulevard here with our shared use path, essentially is what this is. The connection at Town Center Boulevard will conform with existing sidewalks into Town Center and then further down south on Latrobe Road down towards White Rock Road. So there's complete continuity and consistency there. And then north of the project, really where our north boundary is at Saratoga, at the driveway to the Raleigh Center. That ties in with an existing sidewalk there at the north corner. And then just, beyond that is where that existing Class 1 bike path exists that goes all the way north on El Dorado Hills Boulevard. So as far as we've looked at this and explored all the different options for multimodal connectivity, it's all there. This is the best configuration we could come up with that ties, both those existing segments together. We know that this is, no bicyclists or pedestrians are really excited about going through an interchange, and so this certainly, improves many of the deficiencies that are there right now, especially where those ramps occur, in making this more friendly to cross the ramps. So I believe that answers his question in terms of tying in with those existing improvements and making sure that it's a seamless movement through there. And we certainly think that the barrier rail will be something that will greatly reduce user stress. They look at the amount of stress that a bike or pedestrian encounters when they're riding, depending on how close they are to traffic. And so by constructing this barrier, it provides a substantial relief to some of that stress experienced. And so it will be a very good feature just because of the amount of traffic and velocities, vehicle speeds there on Latrobe Road. And then Chris's final comment was about just the northbound additional lane. That was something that we kind of added into this project, mid-design. We did go back and reevaluate that closely and realize that this was the time to do that. Looking at some of the forecasting for the area in the next 20 years, we realized that, it would be a significant improvement if we were just to go ahead and include that northbound lane now between Town Center and the interchange. So we made sure to get that integrated in this and included in the addendum, as well as the traffic study. So I think that took care of all of Chris's comments.
All right, so I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for any discussions or other questions you'll have for Justin.
I'll make a motion to approve DOT's recommendations on the Highway 50 Latrobe interchange.
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, Justin.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, so we'll move to item 29, Planning and Building, Planning Division update.
Item 29 comes from the Planning and Building Department, Planning Division, and Tahoe Planning and Building Division, recommending the board receive and file a presentation on both divisions' major accomplishments in fiscal year 24-25 and key priorities for fiscal year 25-26.
Good morning, everyone. You guys hear me?
Got it.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So, thank you for letting us get settled there for a moment. So, Mr. Chair, Board of Supervisors, Rob Peters, Deputy Director of Planning. I'm joined here by Karen Gardner, the Director of Planning and Building, Brendan Ferry, the Chief Deputy Director of Tahoe Planning, Thea Graybill, our Acting Planning Manager for Long Range Planning, and in the audience, we have Kyle Zimbelman, our Deputy Director of Economic Development and Administration. So I intend to give the entirety of this presentation to your board, but the others are here to help with any detailed responses that might stem from the discussion. Thank you for having that up. We're here to present to you an update on the Planning Division's major accomplishments for fiscal year 24-25, to provide an overview of some of the key priorities for fiscal year 25-26 for both the West Slope and the Tahoe Basin, and to provide a more holistic presentation of the work that the Planning Division, with the goal of ensuring that the board is fully informed of the division's upcoming key priorities so that the Planning Division leadership and the Board of Supervisors are on the same page. This year, we decided to take a broader approach to this presentation and include other units within the Planning Division's work, and not only the Long Range Planning Matrix or work plan, but that's certainly a part of this effort. This approach also attempts to update the board on some key measures and responses to Resolution 014-2024, adopted by the board last year in February, seeking improvements to the county's development review process. Through this approach, our intent is that staff is better positioned to provide a more detailed, comprehensive update to the board for the whole of the division. So a quick overview of the Legistar items. Attachment A is a staff memo providing greater detail on the items that will be discussed today, so more detail than the presentation provides. Attachment B are exhibits to the staff memo, including last year's work plan and a list of inactive projects for the upcoming year, and that all of the projects that are discussed today have been included within our upcoming budget for the next fiscal year. And then attachment C is the presentation that Kim is up on the screen and that we'll be going through. So staff are aware of 2 discussion topics on potential additional work for our unit. And after that presentation, I will hopefully go into those items, but I'd like to get through the presentation, take comment and feedback on the presentation and the division as a whole, and then we can go into those additional work items. And just for the record, those include a request for a general plan amendment and rezone for 2 parcels in the town of El Dorado. And there are 2 accompanying memos, one from 2023 and one from 2025, which are attachments D and E to your Legistar, and potential elimination of reductions of cannabis setbacks. So those we would like to defer to the end, and we can get into those topics. Next slide, please. So with that, I will first provide a brief overview of the type of work that we do within the planning division. So our staff updates and implements the general plan, the zoning ordinance, and the subdivision ordinance. We process discretionary applications for a variety of different types of projects, as well as ministerial permits on a variety of different projects. And these are done in coordination with county divisions and departments, as well as state and federal agencies. We conduct environmental review and analysis to ensure compliance with applicable federal, state, and local regulations. Conduct planning review of building permits, grading permits, and flood reviews processed through our building division, as well as a review of improvement plans processed by our Department of Transportation. We perform land use reviews to provide direction to members of the public and to potential applicants, and we also respond to many public inquiries from customers and a variety of topics. Slide 3, please. So here's an excerpt from our organizational chart outlining the planning units within the Planning and Building Department. Of note, this does not include several administrative staff and other support staff that work hand in hand with the planning staff and to complete the variety of tasks that I outlined, and they are integral to our work. As you see here, the planning division is broken up into 4 units: current planning permit center, current and planning discretionary planning, commercial cannabis, and our long-range planning unit. Moving left to right on the screen, there are a total of 21 full-time staff and 2 extra help staff that conduct planning-related work on the west slope, and there are a total of 3 full-time staff that would conduct work within the Tahoe Basin. So currently, the makeup of these units is on the west slope. The FTEs include myself, 3 planning managers, 14 planners, 5 development technicians, 2 of which are currently extra help. And at this time, 1 senior dev tech position is frozen and for the next fiscal year, and 1 senior planner and 1 associate planner are vacant. In the Tahoe office, the FTs include Brendan as the manager and 2 planners, and currently 1 of those senior planners is frozen. I want to take a moment to thank our staff for their dedication to this county and for their hard work day in and day out. It's a tough and often thankless job, but we have great employees, and our management team cares a lot about them. So I wanted to provide that shout out. Next slide, please. So for fiscal year 24-25, our team has accomplished a lot, and there are still a lot, or a little over a month and a half to go. So we certainly won't go over everything, but we wanted to provide some highlights. Within our discretionary planning team, we processed an average of 150 entitlement requests at any given time, implemented a peer review process for staff reports and other planning documents, as well as a team-oriented coordination meeting to improve planning outputs, increase shared knowledge, and learn from shared experiences. We updated our CEQA initial study template to enhance compliance with the CEQA provisions and to provide better defensibility for our projects as they go through the process. And we also streamlined and clarified our invoicing and communication with applicants by developing a standard naming convention for all of our tasks. And so that eliminates a lot of work at the back end when applicants receive our invoices and are trying to understand what that work includes. In our permit center team, we developed a process manual for planning review of building permits and grading permits, which helps onboarding staff and reduces questions between staff. We established a triage system for preliminary review of commercial tenant improvements and wireless permits. We created an alert system to ensure accessory dwelling unit applications are reviewed within mandated timeframes. So we have very tight timeframes streamlined for those ADUs, and so we want to ensure compliance with that. We processed approximately 87 administrative permits and temporary use permits. We reviewed 1,768 building and grading permits, and we now have a full-time staff person in Tahoe Permit Center, as well as got rid of our plan check backlog within the Tahoe office. And we have reviewed all plan checks older than 30 days, so that's a big accomplishment. For our long-range planning team, we finalized and adopted the interim design standards and guidelines for commercial, multifamily, and mixed-use projects, and adopted the interim objective design standards for multifamily and mixed-use projects that qualify for state streamlining processes. We finalized the communication facility zoning ordinance amendments package. We completed the 2024 Housing Element Annual Progress Report and completed the 2024 General Plan Annual Progress Report, and have made progress on many of the other items that are currently on our long-range planning work plan.
Rob, I'm going to ask you a question
Sure.
right here. So how long does it usually take for a permit to go through? Especially, let's say an ADU. Can you give me an idea how much time?
Yeah, so for an ADU, currently, I believe we have 60 days to process the entirety of the permit. And so what we've done is we've tried to initiate a streamlined review at the very beginning so that we can provide comments back to the applicant to give them one opportunity to sort of cure that application. But we do have to respond by the 60th day with an approval or denial. But we also provided an opportunity with compliant or with for the applicants, should they want to extend those timeframes, that we have some ability to do so. So if they don't want to push those timeframes and want sort of a longer time to respond to comments, we've provided an opportunity to extend those permits within the processing as well.
All right, so hardship cases, same? Or they take different priority?
I do not believe that the same streamlining provisions from the state address the hardship program, but we certainly tried to get those done. Generally, because of the hardship nature of the application, we try to expedite those so that they're done in a timely manner.
All right. And one more question. On Title 25, the residents in Grizzly Flat, how long does it take for, because is this a number one priority that you guys are looking at, especially with now they're starting to rebuild up there?
Well, I was going to say Karen might want to jump in on
Let
this.
Karen talk about that, yeah.
Good morning, Karen Garner, Planning and Building Director. So for Title 25, we do have staff dedicated to review of anything that comes through Grizzly Flats or Caldor Fire related. So we have two in particular that will immediately take those in, and they get top priority. We anticipate those that are taking advantage of Title 25, since they are pre-reviewed plans, that they should be able to, assuming that they submit a complete application, should be able to review those in a week or less, because really all they're reviewing is a site plan at that point.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it.
Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
It looks like maybe Mr. Ferry wanted to chime in on the ADU question.
Yeah, thank you. Supervisor Lane, Brendan Ferry for the record. I was just going to add, in case the public's listening, in the Tahoe Basin, our ADU approval process does involve the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency because of some of the additional permitting requirements in the basin, things like obtaining a unit of use and looking at coverage standards. So ADU's approval in the basin do take a little longer than 60 days.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the next slide, please. I'm going to overview some of the key priorities for this upcoming fiscal year. And so, again, this is for all of the units within the planning division. The items identified on the slide are not intended to capture all of the activities, certainly, that are done, but within each of the units. But again, it's just some of those key priorities. An overarching goal is to continue to enhance and improve our customer service delivery. with the goal of providing excellent customer service to applicants, affected agencies, and members of the public, who are all our customers, and to provide the public throughout our planning processes, and we are working diligently to do so. Under our discretionary planning team, we'll continue to enhance customer service through efficient review of complex projects and delivery of all pertinent information to the stakeholders. So that is an attempt to be more efficient, to reduce timeframes of overall processing, while still providing all of the information to all of the stakeholders, decision makers, other staff, departments, members of the public through that process. Updating a process to provide more clarity and better information related to CEQA 15183 exemption process. So this is the consistency with general plan and zoning based on recent case law. There are, we hear the sentiments all the time about being projects that are consistent with zoning, consistent with general plan. There are some CEQA exemptions that apply to those types of projects, and so we are attempting to get better information in why those qualify or don't through our processes. Continue to integrate and update process improvements, working closely with Kyle and his team, and include implementation of our interim design standards and guidelines. So that is for the design review projects that would be subject to our standards and guidelines, not talking about the streamlined ones. And continue to encourage team building opportunities within the unit, including, like I spoke before, sharing of experiences and knowledge to enhance consistency and deliverables and result in better outcomes. Within our permit center team, we'll continue to strive for compliance with ever-changing state housing legislation, including implementation of our objective design standards and for those priority streamlined projects, and prioritizing educating staff on legislative changes. We're only as good as the information we know, and so we're trying to enhance that education of our staff members along those lines. Continue to integrate and update process improvements. Again, this is holistic across our whole division, and we continue to work with Kyle and his team, both within our discretionary team and within our permit center team. And then preparing to process and review plan checks in the Tahoe office by Tahoe staff, which again is brings a better customer service approach to our Tahoe office. And then for our long-range planning team, which is traditionally what we only focused on, but here we're also discussing the community design standards for the community regions while working towards similar standards for rural centers. So that project is in motion after the approval by your board, and we intend to make a lot of progress in the next fiscal year. Bring the Oak Resource Conservation Zoning Ordinance Amendments package through the Planning Commission to the Board of Supervisors, to bring a package of administrative zoning ordinance amendments, which include administrative updates, including capturing various director interpretations, state law requirement updates, and other administrative fixes that have been found by staff that implement the zoning ordinance. Update the general plan conservation and open space element as required by recent state law pursuant to SB 1425, which requires some updating to those within some certain timeframes. Bring the sign ordinance amendments and the Cameron Park sign standards to the Planning Commission and to the board for hearing. And a big one is draft and present the 21 through 2025 general plan 5-year review. And that will stem a lot of discussions on the move forward in the coming years. And then continue plugging away at the Tahoe El Dorado area plan. Most of the work will be focused on drafting the land use and affordable housing strategy, continued community engagement, and producing a draft TED area plan. So a lot happening in long-range planning. Many of these were on our work plan last year, and so we're continuing a lot of those efforts. Last slide, please. So we've made made various policy and programmatic improvements recently under the director's leadership. These include providing a flexible staffing model by removing silos between units and even divisions, implementing various process improvements, again in coordination with our economic development and administration division, increased online permitting to improve operational efficiency by integrating technology-driven solutions, and being strategic and fiscally conservative when we decide to either outsource work to consultants or complete tasks in-house with efficiency and funding in mind. So our plan moving forward, our plan is to work on the key priorities outlined in this slides that I've presented today for this upcoming fiscal year, and likely into the following year after that, especially with respect to the long-range planning unit, because many of them are multiple-year efforts. Most of the items in the work plan are under play now, and so kind of our big ask in the long-range planning unit is to, continue to let us work on those and bring some of those projects to delivery, because we've made a lot of progress, and we have, I think, the staff to try to get some of those to the finish line. And then thereafter, we'll be shifting our focus to looking at the general plan and what a comprehensive general plan update looks like, with a special focus on land use, transportation, and housing. This has previously been and is expected to be a sort of all hands on deck effort within the planning division. And it's hard to believe, but our housing element is already 50-ish% done and will expire in 2029. So we have a lot of strategy on how to bring certain elements and how to work forward towards that comprehensive, so we're getting the most bang for our buck. And then our general plan 5-year review, as stated in the last slide, is intended to be the point of contact for the board within early next calendar year to really have those discussions on the move forward. Given that information, our intent is to not to return only in a once-a-year type of work plan update discussion over the next few years, unless it's absolutely deemed warranted, but instead, under Karen's direction, our intent is to provide the Board of Supervisors with more regular updates and more routine reporting related to our activities within the planning division throughout the year, with shifting focus of future discussions to the comprehensive general plan effort. Because we don't want to add a lot of things to work plans and then have them pile on top of trying to take on a comprehensive general plan update. By not bundling it all to a once-a-year presentation, we also hope to provide a more fluid means for our modifying our work plan and to address items that are important to the board in a more expeditious way. So instead of waiting till once a year, we're going to try to have more touches with the Board of Supervisors and be more fluid in our reaction to things that are rising to the level of concern. And so the next question you're likely to ask is, how do I get an item identified for long-range planning on the work plan, right? So I wanted to talk through a couple of the ways that you can get about doing that. So through your regular discussions in correspondence with staff, if a project of note is identified, we can get a sense of the majority of the Board of Supervisors and even polling the board to see if it's appropriate to bring forward an item through a resolution of intent. Through discussions with the CAO's office that will, of course, trickle down to our department, and we can kind of go through those same steps that I just discussed. And any member of the board can bring an item before the board for consideration of an ROI. And we've had several of those in recent time, including the most recent Title 25 revisions. Another example is the cool design overlay revisions, where the board member brought it to the whole of the board. They voted on it. We came back with a resolution of intent to work on it, and then those projects were initiated. So that covers our presentation for today. My ask is that we, again, open it for discussion on the presentation at this time, and then we can go into the projects of interest that were identified at the beginning of the presentation and go into more detail wherever that conversation goes. And that concludes my presentation for now.
All right, I appreciate it. I'll bring it back to the board for any comments or discussion. Anybody?
So what did you say you wanted next? What do you want from us?
My
right
hope is
now?
just to talk about, the presentation as a whole for the whole division.
Okay.
And then take some comments, and then we can focus in on those two discussion topics for potential, additions to our work.
Okay. Thank you.
Any comments?
Yeah, I'll make one. Thanks for the presentation. I think it's pretty inclusive, frames the situation at hand. One area that I think we're going to have issue with, I think all rural counties are going to have issue with, and that's in dealing with the state of California and the mandates and the regulations and so forth that they want to place on all of us, and making it very cumbersome for us to meet their requirements. I'm not quite sure how we go about that. Obviously, we've seen with the needle exchange, we attempted to push back and they pushed right back. But darn it, one size does not fit all. And whether that's in Lake Tahoe or that's in the area surrounding Placerville or on the west end of the county, it just does not fit some of our abilities with their priorities. So that's something I think that we have to try to address when we get opportunity, obviously to work with our local legislatures and senators to instill that it just doesn't, it can't happen up here in areas where there's hilly terrain. And as we get closer, and I guess I'll call it sort of build out, we just can't continue to piling it on because you can't bulldoze these areas to make flat land out of it. You don't have the infrastructure road-wise, you don't have the infrastructure terrain, and you don't have the infrastructure for water, sewer, and so forth. So I think that's just something we're gonna always have to keep in mind, and we're gonna have to help staff, because you guys obviously toil with, gotta do this, this, and this, but it's almost an impossible thing to accomplish, especially as we get closer to where do you build it in the future? So that's going to be very important as we discuss the 5 years, looking at the updates and anything that we do with zoning and so forth. So, and you're going to see an item here in a little bit about a particular zoning issue that there's 5 things against it. So how do you expect somebody to do it per what we've zoned it? So it's just going to be tough, and we're going to have to take some stances, I think. And as we represent RCRC and CSAC and others, SACOG, we got to let them know that this doesn't work in our area. Especially, obviously, we know in the Tahoe area, it's very well protected as well. So it's much more difficult to accomplish some of the things that the state mandates that we do.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think almost every board meeting we bring up the state mandates and pushing back. And I don't know how we're going to succeed at that. And I honestly don't think all the counties are unified in the way they see that either, to be honest with you. CSAC especially, because that's the whole state. So you got 58 different views there. RCRC's at 40 counties now. And I'm starting to feel that they're less and less unified also. So I don't know. I've actually had a few conversations with people that marvel at the fact that we don't have our own lobbyist. It's a chunk of change, and I think the county's had lobbyists in the past that were ineffective. And, so if you're going to get one, you need to get a really good one. So there's that. But I don't know. It is a challenge. I grumble all the time about it, but I don't know what we can do.
Right. I think Supervisor Farrar and I had a
Just
discussion
went to
about
the
this on the way up.
CSAC legislative conference a couple weeks ago, and that was the overarching theme with all, CSAC in general, with all the counties, is the mandates that the state is imposing on all of us. In fact, they actually published a booklet, which you all received a copy of all the mandates that have been implemented by the state over I think, the last 15 years, and how it's either costing each county in dollars and cents or personnel hours. And the state, or CSAC, they actually are going to be the voice for the counties as a whole. And it's kind of surprising that all the counties are kind of in agreement on this, to your point.
On land use, though?
Yeah, I think it's
because
not so much land use.
We're talking land use right now.
In general, the overarching, the mandates in general.
Yeah.
And it's particularly the unfunded ones.
Yeah. So I think that's a differentiation, though, is we're talking land use right now today. And I don't think they all see it the same way.
Yeah.
But yes,
You can't.
absolutely,
just one size
yeah.
does not fit all.
And that's their bigger problem, is that they really should look at the different areas, topographies, demographics, you name it, should be included in these decisions, and they're not. So
Right.
that is our bigger problem. And I just don't know how we're going to get it addressed. I just don't.
Well, as we bring items forward and so forth, I think, too, we have to make sure that we analyze what the future impacts of those may be. And I think we're starting to see some of that TOT fallout now, and how maybe a decision was made. And as state revenues dry up, and I think they're going to be drying up even more so in the next couple of years anyway, we've got to be careful to protect ourselves best we can, because there's a lot of unfunded mandates that we're going to have to comply with also. So we can't cut our nose off, spite our face. So,
And I do know that RCRC is trying to take the lead on doing some test cases on, what was that? Prop 90 or whatever that was back in the day. SB 90, it has a 90 in it, to get reimbursement back from the state. They're working on a couple of those, because they used to do it, the state used to do it, and then they kind of stopped. And so a lot of the counties are like, well, why aren't we doing that again? So I can't remember, Tuolumne, I think, is one of our test cases, and just trying to kind of grease those wheels again to say, hey, state, we're doing your work, because we're doing the state's work. They need to fund it. So, yeah, there's some of that going on.
I think there's some potential discretion around ADUs. Certainly our hardship cases, they may be required, but we don't have any limit on them. How can a hardship case be an unlimited timeframe? And in the meantime, we are losing taxes on those situations. So there's some things I think we can work on and help staff to direct to clean up and increase our revenue potential, and interpret it for our advantage instead of, again, some of them, I'm not sure what advantage there is, especially on the hardship thing. As we look into that, again, with no time frame, so somebody can just continually repeat hardship for 20 years, that must not have been a hardship to start with. So it makes no sense. And during that time, we're not getting any property tax on that hardship unit that's in there. So.
And one of the issues that I have is, especially when the state is mandating these low-income, zones and stuff, or putting houses on them, we're not getting any benefit from it, and we still got to apply services. And especially when it's in a high fire zone.
Yeah.
And they complain about, well, we can't build in these certain areas and stuff like that, but then they
turn right around and do
run
it.
around and do it.
Well, yeah.
So, and I think that's something we need to push back on our congressmen and on our assembly and state senators to be able to address this problem, because it's a problem, and there's no revenue generating for our county. And especially when we got to supply all the services that go along with it. So we need to look into it and really address that problem. One of the other issues, the oak tree ordinance, and Brian and I talked about it, especially with these scrub oaks and stuff, that, and the biggest part of the problem is people with the high insurance cost. And to prevent wildfires, we need to address this and make sure that, if this is scrub oak, there shouldn't be any kind of oak tree, it shouldn't even apply to the oak tree ordinance. It should be, I think, either the white oak, black oak, red oak, should be the ones that take priority, because live oak is more of a scrub oak than it is anything else. So we need to address that too.
I think we
I
already.
think it's
I
coming
think we
back.
did. I think it's
brought
coming
that
back, but I just wanted to make it fresh in your mind, Rob, so.
Well,
We have an update coming back to your board on those
Yeah, and it
topics.
just ties OWOPR's hands. 'cause
Oh,
they're-
exactly. We can't
they're
do
going
anything.
Saying you gotta do this, and even the state now has the minimum zero vegetation zones. It's like, now, wait a minute. Anyway, it's coming back.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I do want to thank the Planning and Building Division for bringing these priorities forward and for all the hard work you do. It's so diverse. I also want to say that in my limited time on the board, I have really observed the Planning and Building Division turn a ship. And that's not easy to do, but you are moving in that direction. I see it all the time. I think the way that you've reconstituted who's doing what and the divisions is working. So I just want to encourage you, to continue with the good work that you've been doing and turning that ship. It's not easy. So congratulations on that. And thank you for the presentation.
Any more comments from the board right now? We're opening it up to public comment, please.
We are now taking public comments specifically regarding item 29. Individuals will have 3 minutes to address the board. The timer will notify you. I apologize.
I apologize. I just wanted to make sure, we hadn't had the discussion on those other topics, so I just wanted to get a confirmation. Do we intend to have public comment on those other topics as well?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
Yeah.
The timer will notify you when your time is up. Public comment will be taken first from those participating in the boardroom and then from those participating through Zoom. For those participating by Zoom, please make sure you unmute yourself when called upon. If you're joining the meeting by phone, press *9 to indicate a desire to comment. If you're joining by Zoom, press the raise hand button. Please voluntarily state your name for the record. Taking public comment from the meeting room. Seeing none. Now taking public comment from online participants. Taking public comment from Lee Tannenbaum.
Good morning, supervisors. I'm Lee Tannenbaum, a private citizen of El Dorado County. Firstly, I'd like to state for the record that I object to the fact that you did not allow me to comment on the agenda. I'm writing today to express my firm objection to the inclusion of the significant long-range planning changes under this agenda item, which is misleadingly presented as routine departmental update or on accomplishments and priorities. This item fails to disclose that the county intends to replace the historic long-range planning matrix, one of the most consequential planning documents the county produces. In prior years, this matrix has always been agendized as a standalone item with its own title, discussion, and opportunity for public comment. That practice was not only appropriate, but essential for transparency. Attempting to bury such a change within a generalized presentation item is a clear circumvention of public process. Let me be equally clear. This is not a procedural mistake. This is an intentional effort to avoid public scrutiny. That choice is deeply concerning and potentially unlawful. As you're aware, the Brown Act requires that the public be given timely and meaningful notice of items discussed by local governing bodies. Substantive changes to the county's long-term planning direction, including the LRP matrix, fall squarely within the category of issues that must be properly noticed and agendized. Concealing these changes under a vague heading violates the spirit and arguably the letter of California's open meeting laws. Moreover, there's no legitimate justification for deviating from past precedent. For years, the LRP work has come forward as its own item, enabling focused discussion by the board and full participation from the public. If transparency and accountability are truly priorities of this board, then there's no reason to undermine that process now. I urge this board to pull the LRP discussion out of this agenda item. Anything less would constitute a serious breach of public trust. Let me be candid. Failure to correct this course will not go unnoticed. It may invite formal complaints regarding violations of the Brown Act, as well as broader public outcry. More importantly, it would send a signal that this board no longer values the principles of transparencies and public engagement that form the foundation of democratic local government. The public deserves better, and you have the opportunity to deliver it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Now taking comments from Sue.
Hi, Sue Taylor. So I'm glad planning has become very internal and healthy. My frustration is they focus more on complying with the state than our own general plan. State bills also require those regulations to follow our general plan. It trumps. They pick one thing out of there and say, this is what we have to do, and ignore the rest. Unfortunately, instead of following and defending our general plan, you keep allowing staff to change the general plan, which makes it more compliant with the things that you say you don't want. You need to stop blaming the state. It's you. There are things in these documents that you could use to stop doing what you're doing. I have given you tools and literally you've blown me off. The state requires 30-foot setbacks for buildings on properties that are 1 acre or more. You reduce those setbacks for ADUs to 4 feet. You have currently you have a ABSB 35 project that expired and you won't expire it. I've gone to the state several times to force our county to implement some of these state mandates, and they don't care. They care less. You have not implemented the cultural resources, the things that would protect us. These things require you to also comply to the general plan. And instead of putting things, implementing our general plan as the voters asked you to, have been asking since '04, you keep modifying it. So when you say update, what that means is change. All you're required to do is review it every 5 years to see if it's matching what was intended. And the county's never done this. They keep changing it and changing it and changing it to where we will no longer be a rural county. You're on housing, your focus has been on providing for the very rich and the very poor, and you ignore opportunities for all others. in 2015, when you overhauled the general plan, I'm looking at this other item that wasn't even mentioned, but it's in your plan about somebody that wants to downzone his property, because that's what it was initially. And if you look and compare what was okay in 2015 and then when it was overhauled, it's crazy. In the town of El Dorado, if you look at, this is the first time I've seen this, how much density you're cramming into the town of El Dorado to make your numbers when you don't have any road. This is a town that floods every year. You have no road. You don't even have, there's no way you can have sidewalks because you don't even have the stuff that goes on the side of the road. I can't even think. I'm sorry. This is so frustrating to watch you time after time blaming the state, and ignoring our general plan, putting in more implement. I can't even appeal
3 minutes.
an
Thank you,
SB.
Sue. Thank you.
Now taking comments from Linda Campbell.
Hey everyone, Linda Campbell, El Dorado Hills. So is the intent of including the LRP just to set up for more detailed discussion over the next couple of months? Or is this a tacit approval by the board? This should be detailed as a single agenda item. My main concern is the ability to define scope, set priority, understand level of effort, and obtain project target completion dates. That being said, I have some feedback on the LRP memo. Under discretionary planning, there's a reference to deadline calendars, row 2, and a revised initial study template in row 3. Are both of those going to be published for visibility to the public? That had been requested before, is helpful for clarity and understanding when decisions are made and when we can expect the next milestone to occur. Are there going to be metrics provided to reflect things like total application counts, along with percentage remaining by age? Also, it would be helpful to show percentage completion on time per the calendar and percentage of deadlines missed. Under the permit section, it refers to an alert system for ADUs, but then also includes a statement about state streamlining legislation. I'm aware of the streamlining for the affordable housing, but does that also include ADU versus the high-density projects submitted? Can those guiding legislation bills be provided for reference? Then under the long-range planning section, I noticed that 4 items from the current LRP are listed as completed. In review of the LRP work plan for this year, this results in a 20% completion rate across all projects that are 21 rows, or a 25% completion rate across only those that had a scheduled completion date, which is 16 rows. How can this change in the process to be reasonable about scope and expectations with the focus on helping staff to feel successful in their accomplishments? In the key priorities FY 25-26 discretionary planning section, I'm curious how some of these items will be measured for success. I think the above suggested metrics would help in showing success for efficient review of complex projects. Additionally, it might help to have a goal of showing reduced attrition to reflect if the team building effort is successful. The LRP shows a number of slips from this year continuing into next. However, I don't see any work from the safety element update approved last year showing cross-department collaboration to fulfill those new requirements. For example, there's nothing specific to evacuation routes, which was supposedly a priority concern for the county, and I know that it is for the people. So that's what I have today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda.
Now taking comments from Chris.
Good morning again, board. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. First of all, I have been looking at the attachments that are part of this item, and I was trying to find out any notes, including the staff report, where it speaks about the Title 25 update. That's that limited density that allows people in Grizzly Flat to have a simpler approach to rebuilding. It has been years since the fire occurred. Yet I know that there's been some progress most recently, because I've talked to Supervisor Turnbull about it, but I just wanted to highlight that to me is one of the biggest issues, is the rebuilding of a community that was destroyed. Supervisor Turnbull, if you could speak or ask staff a question that would kind of help the public understand how we're doing and what accomplishments we have made. I realize that the post office is in place now, so the U.S. Postal Service can provide postal. There are some things that I think relates to this item, which certainly haven't been discussed. Also, the simplified plans that we have now that have been produced by, I believe, our staff, that helps people then be able to build a simple home. I think it's tragic that we haven't had that discussion today when so many people are still waiting. Thank you for the time.
There is no additional public comment.
All right, so Rob, can you answer some of those questions, please?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with, there was a lot of questions about sort of reporting and also about metrics, performance metrics. I think that is one of the key components of the resolution that was passed by the board, and one of the objectives that our planning division is working diligently with Kyle and his team on. So we do intend to, and you'll probably get more updates than you like, and certainly more than once a year on that information. But those are absolutely things we're striving for. And while they all haven't been implemented, that's a key priority for us, as identified in the slides. I did want to add that the safety element occurred in the fiscal year 23-24, and so that's why there wasn't a reference to it. Sometimes this is talking about, sort of the next fiscal year or what we're finishing now. So there can be some time delay in some of the information that we provide. I might defer to Karen on Title 25. I will speak about the template for the CEQA. I mean, certainly, I just reviewed the newest CEQA initial study that was done by staff, and it uses that template. So the proof of that, or we hadn't put it online, but we can consider doing so. But it was more about, you'll see it in the projects that are being delivered to the zoning administrator, to the planning commission, to the board. And so you'll see a new sort of fresh look. I think it looks a little more professional. It's a little easier to read and get through, but has, we've worked hard and worked with CEQA professionals to make sure that it has all of the legally defensible parts that it needs.
I'll just add, as far as metrics, we do have both monthly and quarterly reports that we put online that do have some of those metrics. And, that is where we'll probably add on as we have the ability to report out on additional metrics. There was some comments about noticing and agendizing the item. This item was noticed and agendized in the same exact way that it previously has. Yes, the format is a little bit different. I'm kind of a big believer in, not going with, because that's the way we've always done it. As you can see, and just from this discussion, we are making changes. And so this was one of the items, rather than have such a narrow focus and scope, that we wanted to expand it out so that there was a better understanding of how our units within planning work together. And then as far as Title 25, similar to the safety element that was actually adopted in last fiscal year. However, we do have the pre-reviewed plans that are now available. Folks are working on their applications. I anticipate we will definitely start seeing construction this season. I will also have an item on the next meeting to expand Title 25 to the Phillips area. And within that report out, I will give a little more of a overview and update on Title 25 and Grizzly Flats overall.
Thank you, Karen. I'm going to add to it a little bit, Chris.
Your
'cause
microphone.
wait a minute. I'm going to add to it a little bit, Chris, because you brought up about the post office. Worked hard to get that done, because all they wanted to do was expand the post office down at Four Corners, Pleasant Valley Post Office. So I got the post office done, and it got brought there. One of the things I'm working on right now, we're on a shortfall of Walt Tyler School of $2.5 million. We need that. I'm working with Kevin Kiley to make sure that we can get that funded so we can bring the school back to Grizzly Flat. So I just want to let you know on that too, so. Anybody else have any comments?
I guess just one more. I know the budget ad hoc, we're talking about TOT and revenue enhancement and so forth. And I would like, and hopefully everybody would concur, that we bring back the VHR ordinance for the application on the west slope. I think it's got some very limiting factors. It is definitely different, west slope configuration of properties and so forth, differentiate from the east slope. I know when I was on the board previously, we did not have them inclusive, and I think we're starting to see some of the implications of why. And as we look at revenues and possibilities, and certainly there needs to be parameters, but I think we've, again, sort of handcuffed ourselves, and I'd like to make sure that we bring that back and have a discussion and create a path to success for the county as well as the property owner, that they can be successful with their properties, because there's much larger parcels, there's a detached residences, and that's why I want to talk about the ADU component as well. There's state language, we didn't make sure that we work through that properly to open that back up on the west slope to capture some TOT that is occurring, and we're running into. We just have one in Camino the other day that came to us, that they've been paying their TOT, been doing this, they've been doing that, but they've got a full kitchen in it, so it's an ADU, and so by eliminating that opportunity for them, again, cutting off our revenue streams. So I think there's applications that we can have that will be successful, and again, have to have parameters, but we don't have to have them, and I think Tahoe's done an excellent job with the enforcement component, and we've completely eliminated that issue that was up here by having code enforcement and so forth. So I think there's other ways around it, and we can still be going after that TOT. So
Are you mentioned Camino and bigger parcels. Are you talking ag though?
Well, it could be, it could not be. Some of them aren't, some of them aren't.
Right, and I think that's where
Yeah.
our ag.
But we need to bring that,
yeah.
we need to have that discussion about
And
it. So
they need to be together,
Yep.
because, yeah, they weren't referencing each other very well.
Right.
And we have situations out there that,
Yeah.
were not included because, they're outside of that. So yeah, if there is a bigger conversation, I think, here, and you can kind of elaborate where you're at on that maybe, because it's in the works.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so we are working on what right now we're calling ag lodging, and so that would expand short-term stays on ag-zoned property, possibly some other types of property. But I want to clarify, Supervisor Veerkamp, I think one of the things you mentioned was our current ADU ordinance, and right now, the language, it restricts the ability to use an ADU as a short-term rental. That is our county code. The state, there are a couple of specific situations if you're using certain streamlining and reductions of setbacks and certain size, smaller units. Those cannot be used as short-term rentals, but they do not speak or do not restrict the ability to use larger ones that fall outside
Right.
as a short-term rental or VHR. Again, that's county code. It's very clear in our county code right now. It says no ADU can be used as a short-term rental or a VHR. So if that's something you'd like us to look at.
Yes, because that's one of our primary sources of revenue, and again, we've limited ourselves to that ability. We're not going to be, and I don't ever profess that we will, want to be like a big urban city that has tons of retail and so forth. So we have to capture it where we can, within reason. And within reason is very important, but this one I'm referring to is in Lower Camino. It's not on ag property. He's got it booked out for a year in advance. I mean, and all of a sudden, boom, the ordinance now has been made known to him. So now what's he do?
Yeah,
And-
I had one also in Cool,
Yeah.
very similar situation.
We just have to
Right.
utilize those things to our advantage and not limit ourselves within reason.
Yeah.
Within reason is an important word.
And I agree with you that, I think the board the last few years has done a good job of supporting staff in creating, the code enforcement division as a whole. It wasn't there before, and it was difficult to enforce anything. So appreciate that staff let us know what they needed so that we could make it happen. And that's helped a lot on both sides of the enforcement, you know, the folks that expect enforcement, and then it's clear for the folks to know what the rules are and what to do or not to do. So that's been really good. You're right. Yeah.
And then obviously the situation begs for an event type ordinance, and that's something else, but those are
that's so
directions,
fun.
I know. But if we're gonna be a heavily, which we are, tourist economy.
Yeah.
Then we have to have things in place that things can occur within reason. And that's protecting the private property rights of the person that may or may not like it, but still, if it's setbacks and so forth, we can do it.
One of
Chair,
the things.
if you don't mind, since we're kind of jumping into these additional items, I just kind of want to set the stage for that. So, you know, whatever direction we get from the board today as items that we want to potentially add here, the way we'll approach it is we would prepare information and an ROI to resolution of intent so that we can bring each item individually back to the board and have more details behind each of those. What we want to make sure is time, cost, you know, address any unintended consequences, you know, pros, cons, all that, so you have the full information of each of these. And also what that allows is public to get a better picture. So, and that's just step one. From that ROI, if we move forward, then we come back with an actual resolution, and that actual ordinance changes, and that requires 2 hearings. So I just want to be clear, you, the board, the public will have at least 3 opportunities to chime in on any of these topics.
Right.
Yeah, one of the other things in looking into TOT tax or some kind of fee, especially on these campgrounds, because it still impacts our roads. People that use these campgrounds, they drive on our roads, and that's one of the biggest issues that, you know, that we need to address, so. Okay.
Can I just clarify something? Sorry, the new guy, and haven't been to one of these meetings, and I'm reading the agenda item, and it looks like it's simply just a review of the prior year. There's nothing about future years. So anything we bring up today, like in addition to the long-range plan, or we'll have multiple meetings to discuss it, and the public will be involved. No decision will be made today. Conclusively, potential, for them to come bring it back to us.
What Karen already
Okay.
mentioned, yeah, so we would come back to the board, get an authorization. The zoning ordinance requires that if you're going to make a zoning amendment or a general plan amendment, that you get a resolution of intent to do so. So we've got, that's the authorization of work. All of those items also come through the planning commission for recommendation generally, maybe not VHRs, I'm not sure, but anything in the zoning ordinance. And so then also, like Karen mentioned, there would be a first reading of that and a second reading. So there are multiple opportunities.
All right, okay, thank you.
And just for clarity, though, it actually says provide direction to staff. So
Yeah.
that's the future.
Well,
looking part of it.
when I was reading that, I
Yeah.
thought it was provide directions to the staff on last year's, accomplishments. So as long as there's gonna be further hearings and things like that on anything we move forward with.
Always.
Okay.
Just to clarify, this is Thea Graybill, Acting Planning Manager for LRP. For the record, the staff memo outlines not only key accomplishments of this fiscal year that we're currently in and just wrapping up next month, but it also reviews key priorities for this upcoming fiscal year. So it is both, looking in the past, but also, or present, and looking forward.
Thank you.
I guess I'll add one more just because I have to say it out loud. We worked extremely hard to meet the requirements of the budget coming forward and moving into the next year and make sure that we responded to the requests that were made. And so we're also keeping that in the back of our minds always. We have a list of items that we've been working on or have been multi-year efforts that we'd like to get to the finish line. And so we're just cognizant of how much we add to that under all of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Do you have anything?
I do. Thank you, Chair. We had, this is mostly directed to Mr. Ferry or Ms. Graybill, but we had kind of talked about the one-year anniversary of the VHR ordinance and how we were going to approach that. I do think that in October, when the board returns to the basin for a final meeting, up here that we talked about doing a really big dive into code enforcement for all the great things that you just said that are working, and their numbers already, just looking at 6 months in, are staggering. But what was our intention on coming back with the VHR ordinance?
Supervisor Lane, yeah, this is Brendan Ferry for the record. So we are planning currently on September 30th to return to the board, which is when you'll be back in Tahoe in this room. So we are planning for September 30th to provide, it won't be quite a one-year anniversary. The effective date of the ordinance amendment was November 22nd of 2024. So, 10 months or so to come in and provide the board with a current update on where we stand with the program and really how we have changed our approach entirely based on not only the board direction, but the advisory committee's primary recommendation was, yes, you have an ordinance, but you are not enforcing it. So the board direction, and we greatly appreciate it, was to go ahead and increase our enforcement capabilities. You provided funding for us to do that, and boy, have we responded. We have incredible staff. I'm not just saying that. We have some tremendous people led by Mr. Bailey, Kevin Bailey, and you'll hear from him largely on September 30th in his presentation, where we'll be sharing a lot of data, our approach, our customer service approach. We can talk about TOT and impacts, but really give the board a good feel for where we're at, and talk about how we want to move forward. One thing I'll just say, in response to Supervisor Veerkamp's request and Supervisor Parlin's request, maybe to look back into the VHR ordinance for the West Slope and our approach there, and how we may have affected TOT and some of those rule changes. I think there's a lot of factors at play with TOT. This ordinance has only been in effect for 6 months, and I from what we understand from looking and talking with our co-counties around us and the city actually hasn't had VHRs, but boy, are they coming back, it sounds like. Whole nother topic. For instance, talking to Placer County and looking at their data and the trends of visitorship, things have really slowed down over the last, since the presidential election. Things have slowed. Visitorship has slowed. People are not staying in Airbnbs. We didn't have a huge winter. We've been in the shoulder season, and I think we've seen a real slowdown in VHRs. And I personally don't think it's our ordinance. There are these, I won't call them one-off cases, but there are, a handful of cases where folks have been operating, say, in an ADU and using it as a short-term rental. That has not been allowed per our ordinance since we made the ADU ordinance amendment, and I don't know exactly when that was, but that has not been allowed for quite some time. Mm-hmm. It's just the process by which they've been obtaining a business license, et cetera, that hasn't been thoroughly vetted. Yes, we've been collecting TOT, and we greatly need that. Now, with the ramp up in enforcement, we are discovering these occurrences, and we're catching these handful of folks. It is unfortunate, and I totally empathize with these situations. We try to provide them a path forward. Sometimes that path is not, and I get it, not exactly what they want to hear. Hey, if you remove your kitchen and convert your ADU into a guest house, we'll allow you to rent it. That's not easy to hear when someone's invested in their property and built a kitchen in there. So those are just some thoughts on VHRs, but again, we do plan to come back September 30 with a pretty comprehensive update. So,
Brandon, thanks for that, and I understand that. But some of these folks they're golden people in the community. Then they've had an opportunity and they did it. I think it almost sets us up for liability because now you say we're finally catching up to them. Well, they've got obligations, and it just makes it very difficult for us then to say, well, realistically, you're not hurting anything, but, oh, by the way, you can't do it. And that's how I look at it, is, are they really hurting anything? Is it a detached unit on 40 acres, and there's no noise issues, there's nothing going on, other than county revenue that we could be creating while they're driving on our roads to get there? I mean, if we want to eliminate and shut the county down, then good luck. We're going to cut a whole bunch of services. And these are discussions we're having as well, the budget advisory. But so we got to determine how we want to do this. But the ones especially that aren't hurting anything, they're following the rules. And now we've changed the rules on them that I disagree with. So to me, I'd like to revisit that. And
We
I think
didn't
there's a
change the
reason.
rules,
We didn't
we
change 'em.
just
We
are
just
finally
enforced 'em.
enforcing the rules.
Well,
It
no,
was there
yes,
all
we did.
along.
Well, no, there wasn't. There wasn't a VHR ordinance on the west slope of El Dorado County.
But VHRs were not allowed in ADUs at all, all
Yeah.
this time, we just weren't able to enforce it. And I get what you're
We
saying.
had that debate numerous times about whether we were gonna enforce VHR rules on the west slope in my prior term, and we did not go there because of the possibilities for TOT and other possibilities that we had.
We
and
decided
people's
as a
property
county
rights.
that we needed to have enforcement
I
and
understand.
compliance.
I understand that.
So, but now we need to look at the actual ordinances to see what we do and don't want to
Right.
do.
Well,
And we have to do it as a whole. We can't just pick and choose folks. That's going to get us in
I'm
hot
not
water
picking
too.
and choosing folks, I'm picking
Yeah.
and choosing west slope and east slope. And
Yeah.
there were reasons for the east slope issues. And realistically, with resources, I think that took away the problem, pretty much. Because your resources now are getting out there and enforcing it, whether put on the homeowner or the
Yeah.
perpetrator, if you want to say it. So it was really an enforcement issue that maybe we didn't need a VHR ordinance.
Oh, it needed to be updated too. It was a mess,
Well,
but yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Any more questions from the board?
So where are we at now, Rob? Where do you want us?
So with this VHR ADU discussion, I think we've got some good feedback on that. So the other two items, the one we have a memo on regarding the specific general plan amendment rezone for a couple of parcels in El Dorado. We do not have a memo on the other discussion item. That one's pretty straightforward. It's just a specific section of our cannabis regarding setbacks and an exception to that, and whether we
I'll
want to
flesh that
keep
one out first because it is
Okay.
straightforward, and I gave staff a heads up that I was going to bring this today. But I've been watching the cannabis projects as they've been coming to the planning commission, and then no matter what the planning commission does, almost always it gets appealed to the board. There's been very few that haven't been appealed, and the heart of most of it tends to be that exemption in there to reduce the setbacks. It's causing a lack of clarity for all parties. The applicants don't know if ultimately the setbacks are going to be approved because the phrasing in there is about, I don't know, being comparable, mitigations, and that's not helpful. And it's kind of iffy in my mind, but, and then the residents don't care for that because in their minds are like 800-foot setbacks. That's something you can count on. Aesthetics we've talked about, environmental, all of that. So we've seen some members of the public actually in emails, ask us to remove that exemption clause so that everybody knows exactly what to expect from the ordinance, and I totally support that.
I would concur.
I would like to ask today that staff bring back an ROI to do that, to remove that exemption and not touch anything else in that ordinance, because we don't need to open it up again.
If I may, I'd love to ask some clarifying questions on that, and I do have the ordinance available should we need to
Okay.
go into those languages. But so the setbacks or the cannabis use permit has a section in the beginning of that talks about commercial cannabis use permits. And so it applies to multiple types of cannabis use permits. I believe, and so does that discussion about setback reductions. I believe that the intent is to address the outdoor and mixed light cultivation setbacks, which are to the schools, which are to the property lines. and also R2 riparian areas. So there are three. There's one 300 feet for riparian areas. There's the setback, I think 800 feet to the property line, and the 1,500 to the school bus stops, schools, places of worship, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to get clarification when we bring back an ROI that we're not missing the target, that your intent is to either make an exception to those rules for the outdoor cultivation and mixed light cultivation, because there are other setbacks, for instance, for retail and for manufacturing and warehousing. I don't think we're talking about those, and so I just wanted to get some
Do those have exemptions?
The overarching statement applies to all cannabis use
Does
permits.
it?
So yes, so we want to make sure that we understand the intent of those requirements, because I don't think it's been a big issue, for instance, with some of our retailers, as an example, with the proximity to things, because they're more in the urban environment and they're more like storefronts. So I don't think, but I just want to make sure that we're clear on those, and if we need to, we can go into those languages. But yeah, section 13041, 104C is where we're talking about commercial cannabis permits and those deviations from setbacks. But they're also in cultivation standards under 41-205B, which is location, and C, which is setback. But they're also identified in 41-304C, which is location related to retail, distribution, indoor cultivation, lab testing, and manufacturing. So there are setbacks sort of littered throughout. I just wanted to make sure that we fully understand. I believe that your intent is to do the outdoor cultivation, mixed light cultivation, which is where those neighboring property lines and the school bus ones.
Right. Indoor cultivation, though, is greenhouses outside, right? And I think that folks don't want those setbacks reduced ever either.
I think I'm not the cannabis expert on
Right.
it, but I believe greenhouses are slightly different than indoor cultivation.
Yeah.
That's that mixed light.
Yeah.
Some of the folks probably that will call in will correct whatever I'm saying. But,
They will.
I think that indoor is more, commercial, industrial, and those are only allowed in those more industrial type zones. And so you've heard sentiment from the Planning Commission and in some of the previous discussions we had that those should be allowed in agricultural areas. But there is a distinction made between a greenhouse, like a mixed light type of facility, versus a indoor only.
Okay. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it all plays on the intent of
Right.
what you're trying to exempt from. And I think, in my opinion, it's an overall exemption from any piece of that cultivation. I don't care, indoor, outdoor.
Whatever,
Yeah,
cultivation.
filter system
yeah.
fails, bus stops, I mean, everything, there was setbacks for reasons, and I don't think they should be exempted.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too.
Well, when we bring it back, we'll sure to make sure those distinctions are clear and where those pieces are, and we'll definitely bring the detailed information.
So when you bring back the ROI, could you give us like a menu so that of choices so that we can isolate them better and know what that would be great.
Yeah, I think that would be the right look, is just to go through the sections and say, here's where it is and here's how it applies, and so you decide what parts you want to
I like that option. having
And
the
if I
menu.
could just jump in really quickly
Yeah.
on that, because I do think that's the better course of action. I think I want to make it clear you're not making any final decisions on that today.
Oh, absolutely
You're simply
not.
providing direction to staff to bring back that resolution of intent, which would be that would be the formal action to start the process. And you, of course, during that discussion, as Rob just indicated, would have opportunity to provide further clarity on which portions of the ordinance you're seeking to amend. So I think that I don't think you either need to, nor do I think it's actually even appropriate to get into too much detail at this point, because the subsequent action is really that opportunity. And I do just want to address, for the board's benefit, a question that may come up, because as you know, these cannabis cultivation ordinances were adopted by the voters. And so I just do want to address, for your benefit, a question you may have in your mind: how are we even considering making amendments to an ordinance that was adopted by the voters? And it is true, in fact, the courts have said that legislation enacted by voter initiative can be changed only with the approval of the electorate. However, the courts go on to say, unless the initiative measure itself permits amendment or repeal without voter approval. And that is, in fact, what is included in these ordinances that you're discussing. In the ordinance Rob just mentioned, section 130, 41, 100, it clearly states, while the ordinance from which this section is derived was originally enacted by voters, the Board of Supervisors retains discretion to amend the ordinance in any way, including but not limited to all procedures provided herein, permit requirements and penalties, without further voter approval. So I just did want to answer that question to the extent you had that in your minds. Certainly, someone may allege that the extent of the amendment you're proposing exceeds or is in conflict with the voter's intent, but the language within the ordinance itself, which was approved by the voters, does provide this board with a fairly wide latitude in making amendments without further voter approval.
Thank you for that. So yes, the menu of options that'll be really helpful for us. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions from the board? All right, so this is a receive and file.
Well, we've got one more.
Oh,
element.
Nope,
Sorry.
there's more direction.
More direction?
I have another one
Okay.
after that too, just so you know.
Okay, go ahead.
So the last item then is the, which I had the memo for the rezone general plan amendment for the parcels in El Dorado.
Yep, so I think everybody obviously probably prepared and read those. This is a unique situation, downtown El Dorado, historic district, right behind Poor Reds. Missouri North and Oriental are all 8-foot wide roadways with no ability for curb gutter sidewalks. Raphael, our DOT director, has looked at the property as well and the roadway infrastructure. Very difficult to be able to put any 24-foot wide roadways, curb gutter sidewalks, streetlights, and so forth that would be required with project, whether it would be 5 units or the potential of 43 units on these two small parcels. Pleasant Valley Road, Highway 49 is at service level F during peak times, so also adding to potential difficulty in meeting your roadways travel. Downtown El Dorado is subject to extreme flooding. Actually, we're doing a grant in conjunction with the water agency to hopefully deal with some of that long-term flooding issue we have down there. That any type of stormwater runoff for a multi-unit development would also go right downtown El Dorado, making the situation even worse. And then Caltrans, through a grant, has identified pinch points on evacuation routes in El Dorado County, and Pleasant Valley Road, Highway 49 is one of those, with no improvements slated. We know also the state is attempting to plot 3 multifamily developments, which 2 of them are already being built on Highway 49, which is going to complicate things even further. So these 2 parcels have been requested to be changed. There was an exemption that ran with them, and the 2015 TGPA ZOU eliminated that exemption. So this property owner has no ability to do anything with the property. If we reanalyzed it, zoned it back to R1A, R1A, which is consistent with what's around it, we would then have the possibility for a couple single-family homes in there and generate some revenue. So that's the request. Short version.
Right.
So
Okay. So I get what you're saying. What I'm having a hard time with is that this is a one-off to fix something from, and I'm gonna call it LUPU, you guys, because it's easier. It was Land Use Programmatic Policy Update is what we used to call it, and then they changed it on us. So call it LUPU, it's easier. But when we were doing LUPU, there were a lot of community groups there, and I was in one of them. And we said, board, this is way too much. There are gonna be unintended consequences that you're not gonna realize for a long time. And they have been popping up over the years, ever since. And this was a big programmatic update, and to fix 2 parcels when it's a bigger issue is kind of concerning to me. And I get what you're saying, I totally understand. But the problem is that it was this huge, and you know it was a huge environmental EIR. There were 30,000, literally 30,000 parcels rezoned in some shape or manner. And the public begged the board not to approve it, and the board did. And here we are, and fixing a one-off
Would
is.
be consistent with what we've fixed on
Well,
a few occasions.
But when you
And
do a
they-
big programmatic thing,
I
how
get it.
are we gonna trickle that out? And so I'm not sure if doing a one-off is the right way to approach it, or we need to
It worked
do
in
it
Cameron Park.
in the next, for what?
Well, the apartment project was a one-off.
What apartment project?
The, losing the name of it,
Miraloma.
Mariloma.
That had nothing to do with Lupu. That was an error from the 1990s.
And this originally zoning was prior to Lupu. The only thing that changed in Lupu was the exemption,
Correct.
right, Karen and
It-
Rob? Yeah, so I get it.
Yeah,
I totally get it, but staff, and not this staff, assured us that everything fit. And
Right.
when you look at a Google Earth of roadway infrastructure and you see, well, yeah, there's roads around it, but then, again, to the layer that probably should have been analyzed,
right?
I think mistakes were made.
Lots.
So I'm just trying to allow a property owner, and there's probably other ones out there, but I think we've got 5 reasons here, major reasons, that this one's more unique than some of them, that we can rezone and have the ability for single-family residents, which is consistent with the area, to generate, again, property tax other than just having a vacant parcel.
So is there a reason that the property owner isn't okay with following one of the recommendations that staff had, that he could still get to where he wants to go without us having to change anything?
Well, you could do, obviously, you could do the
Plan
development.
development, right.
But eventually, you're gonna have to build that, which you cannot build the infrastructure around it. There's no way.
So help us out, Karen, because, I'm not disagreeing with you
Yeah.
about this, but I'm just saying it was
You tell me
part
how-
of
yeah.
Lupu, and
I
you were
get it.
there, you
Yeah.
actually didn't listen to the community groups that asked.
I'm willing to admit,
That,
we made that mistake, but so we should, doesn't mean we, in perpetuity, we keep them going. We have to fix things.
but how
And
do
I
we
can
do
we're gonna-
that properly, though,
Well, we're
instead
gonna
of
do our-
one-offs? I
we're gonna
guess
do
that's
our-
what I want to
We're gonna
know.
do our best in the next time we redo the area, but what I also said a little bit ago was there are not ways that we're gonna meet state housing elements.
Right, and I think that's where, how do we do this bigger picture and still accommodate this property owner? And can we get to where we want to go ultimately, Karen? This is a mess, I agree.
It's not easy. There's no easy path. So, of course, whatever the board decides, we will follow. It does have some things, if we were to move forward, we do need to look at the arena numbers closely and get a better sense of, where that puts us. As I mentioned in the memo, we're kind of right at the 15% cushion that the state recommends. That's a recommendation. So that is really up to the board to decide, are you willing to go below that recommendation or not? I haven't looked at any case law, or any situations in other counties or cities, if they've gone below that 15%, what has happened, if anything? That's something I would look at. As far as other opportunities, I think I outlined that as well. Certainly, lessons learned when we do our general plan update and look at the land use element. We're going to see what we can do to look more closely when we are rezoning or, new land use designation on a parcel. Hopefully not find ourselves in this situation again. No promises. I'm not even sure I'll be around by the time we get there. But, that's a multi-year effort, obviously. That's years before we get there. So I think, to answer your question, certainly we can look at these 2 parcels. That may trigger other people to say, well, hey, I've got unique situations as well, and we'll just have to address those as they come forward.
So would it be, because I'm guessing that the plan development permit, as it's laid out here, is like, plan for it, just build the 1 residential unit for now. In the future, things will change and all that. Is that an expensive process? Could we
Yes.
instead though, assist with those fees rather than trying to do a big rezone, which is also a lot of county time and money.
Well, again,
Yeah.
my only concern, we talked about that a lot. I don't think you're ever gonna move Poor Ridge, you're never gonna move Highway 49. So those things would have to occur, as well as move Heaven and Earth on Missouri, North, and Oriental streets. And Oriental's partially owned by the county, so that would be at least a possibility, but you just don't have,
Right.
their prescriptive easements where the property owners own in the middle of the road, so none of them are gonna wanna allow any widening of that roadway to accommodate the traffic required by the county DOT for these projects. So that's why this one's really a cat in a sack. I mean,
Are there any other parcels there besides these two that got rezoned that could potentially be coming? Because I know it says in the stuff, I did look at Google
Not
Earth a wee
vacant.
bit. Right,
Yeah.
that aren't vacant, that aren't developed? Are these the only two in that area not developed?
I believe so, in that little cluster that have that same zoning and land use. I believe all the
we
others
looked
are
at
developed
31
with a single-family
parcels, and Everyone
home.
has a house on it, built with
Except
that
for the
exemption,
one.
because the zoning was
So-
that way with an exemption.
I'm just gonna say it again for,
You can say it all you want, that's fine. I
and
can take it.
and thank you for owning it, that a lot of concerns were brought up during that process. It was too big, too much. And we asked the board, and I will say we, because I was there, asking the board at the time, please, it's too much. We don't know the consequences, and so here we are. And Mike, as long as those are the only two in the area that aren't developed, and I just want to make sure that that's clear, and maybe that would come back, because we have to do an ROI
Yeah, yeah,
regardless.
yep, it would
We
be.
could have
Yeah,
that fleshed out in the
there's-
ROI and make it very crystal clear that these are the only two that,
Yeah, to the west is the Hagen Ranch, which is the large, I think it's probably even ag zone, and then to the north is the bike trail.
Right.
So there's nothing else there short of then all the R1A that is surrounded by Poor Reds and up to up to 3 streets.
and when the most palatable thing to do is just put the exemption back, I guess, put that you could build a single-family house on the,
Well,
put the
yeah, so I
zoning
want to
back,
talk a
or-
little bit about that. So we
Yeah.
had, the general plan in 2004 had this area outlined as multifamily residential, for good or bad.
So it goes back.
At the time, we had what was called R2 zoning, which was
Yes.
limited multifamily. It allowed a single-family residence by right. The state, I believe, said, you can't have multifamily zoning that allows a single family because you won't build multifamily.
Right.
So that LUPU or TGPAZOU said, let's bring the zoning into compliance with the general plan. Since it had the underlying multifamily general plan, all of it became multifamily residential. Much of it is already developed, like we said,
Right.
but these are sort of those, and the one in between them has a single-family residence, which was identified under that previous zoning. So when we're talking exception, we're actually talking about an allowance within a previous zone that no longer exists.
correct. And I remember that too, that argument, and we were going, you gotta look at what's on the ground, not just the land use designation, and, anyway.
You're right.
In that particular street, because we owned a parcel that was there at one particular time, which we don't own anymore, but you cannot park on that street. It's hard to get, even cross traffic through there. So, and it's not wide enough. Those streets are not wide enough. They're like back in the buggy days, you know what I mean, in the 1800s and stuff. Those roads right there, North Street, Missouri Street, South Street, are all narrow roads. And there's no way to put any kind of sidewalks or anything on those streets.
So if the board decides we want to pursue this and look into it, you would bring back an ROI, you'd have all the consequences of that moving forward. And one of them's going to be some housing unit numbers, apparently, that to me feels like your guys' biggest concern is the housing unit numbers. Are there other big concerns that we're not getting?
I think that and just kind of what we mentioned, that, I don't want this to start a flood of people.
I'm concerned too.
And so, that's kind of one of the reasons we looked very specifically, what are the unique circumstances of these parcels? A lot of people may be unhappy with what their property is zoned, but there's got to be some unique special circumstances that, give us that reason to look at making changes.
So then the ROI would delineate that, make it clear so that we aren't opening any floodgates to, I don't like my property. We just can't have that.
No, and you probably all
Yeah.
have had people approach you, and so what I then tend to look at, roadway infrastructure, look at the things that they can have. Well, no, you've got this, this, and this, so if you want to change it, it's on you.
Right.
Good luck.
Okay.
Okay. All right, is that it?
You want better consensus than that?
Yeah, I don't like it, but I get it. And if the board wants to go there, I'll go there.
It sounds like you both agree it's poor zoning.
Yeah.
You're looking at more of a global view to change the whole county, but
Yeah.
I don't think we should kick a problem down the road. And maybe we should handle the one-offs one at a time, and there might be more that come
Well,
up.
and there's the problem is that we don't want to create this precedent. But I can see where this area was looked at as an area before it was developed, hodgepodgey. These are the last undeveloped parcels there. So, and then the zoning in that area changed. So I can see it. And yeah, please don't ever do anything big like this ever again, because I can't even, I'm just beside myself right now.
So, I agree. Okay. So any other questions? Brooke, anything?
I'll just say, as we bring these back, and it may actually warrant a little bit of a separate discussion on, sorry.
All right, thank you, Karen.
Touch.
So you got direction anyway.
Well,
right?
Have direction, I'll just say,
Yeah.
as we bring
Yeah.
these back, we may have additional discussion on sort of priorities, because
Yeah.
I know these sound easy on paper, just rewrite an ordinance, make a change, good to go. It's always way more complicated than that, takes much more time. So we'll bring that back and make sure, if it's going to affect other projects,
Right.
get your feedback on that.
Right, okay. I have another one. I have one more, and it's an easy one, because I've already talked to staff, and it was something that Supervisor Turnbull, you and I were in some meetings a couple years ago. We talked about Pine Hill Preserve, north side of the freeway, county owns, DOT, these parcels. We've talked in the past, a couple years ago, about developing some walking trails, maybe looking to see if we can push the envelope for some bike trails, but explore what we can do with those properties. The sheriff has a high interest in getting users out there, because it will help keep an eye on the properties for us, and getting people out there in a thoughtful way that are respectful of the native plants. We must do that and make sure that our partners in the Native Plant Society and BLM are all on board. But just I kind of just wanted to let the board know that we've been talking about this in the past, and I wanted to bring it so that everyone's aware of it and that there's buy-in from everyone. It's not just us going, yay, let's go do this, but it's been talked about for quite some time. And so I thought this is a good way to just more formalize it so everybody knows, and to make sure nobody has big concerns before staff keeps moving in this direction. So, I'm just checking in with anyone. Concerns? Anyone?
Is there still a Pine Hill Preserve meeting group that? Yeah.
Yeah, there is a group comprised of 5 organizations or more.
Right, and who's our rep? Because I used to go to those meetings as.
Oh, gosh, I
yeah.
don't think we have anybody going
No,
to them, to be honest, from the county.
Yeah, there was a board rep.
So
years ago.
we might want to look into that then, because I think that would be a good
Yeah,
idea.
because you're there with them all, and
The Pine Hill Preserve CMA, we do have a staff member who attends, but yeah, I don't know
Okay.
about the board attendance.
yeah, no, that makes sense.
Okay, so, just want to get that formalized so that staff has cover for working on it.
Well, I don't have enough information to make any kind of decision. I mean, I just don't even
Yeah.
know what you're talking about, so.
Do we need a ROI on that, or you need to come down and hang out with me more?
That one's a little different. We're
Yeah.
partnering with Jennifer Frenich and the Parks Division as far as looking at grants. We planning are sort of the managers, if you will, of that property. The creation of trails and the management of trails would actually end up being more on the Parks Division side. We'd certainly help and assist as we can, but doesn't require rezone, doesn't require a general plan amendment, so a little bit different.
So it sounds like that would be more appropriately directed towards parks then, right?
Partnership for now, yeah,
Okay.
but, yeah.
There is some land swapping going on there, but it'll come.
I'll just add the agree bill.
Thea, your mic.
Sorry, these mics are
I know,
tricky.
they're different.
You really got to pay attention to the color. Thea Graybill, just wanted to note that we are planning on having an action item in front of the board soon, as Supervisor Parlin mentioned, on, DOT had purchased properties in this area that's being referenced, and we are planning on buying those back, we as in our department, Planning and Building Department, to replenish their road fund. And so we are planning on bringing that item back in front of the board soonish, probably late summer, fall, hopefully. And along with that item, I was sort of just contemplating maybe just updating the board on kind of, because it's that area, there's a lot of components, a lot of different things happening, both on the land and then off the land, that LRP staff is facilitating and coordinating with other partners on. And so I thought it might be time for kind of just an update to go with that item.
I think that's a really good idea, because the Pine Hill Preserve got requirements, and there's a goal of so many acres, and we're only so far into adding acreage, and you could give us an update on that and where we're at, and the land, and maybe a good map of what lands are in the area that we could add to it and where that money comes from, because that's why we're doing a fee study. So that would be really good we haven't had one in a long time.
Well, and we had tried years ago to get Fish and Game to give us a number, because it kept growing. So, well, that's not fair. Yeah, so anyway, I would concur with that
I think
as
it's a
well.
good idea. Then we'll all be up to date on that, because we haven't had an update on it in well, there was nothing going on for a while too. COVID quashed all our fun. So, okay. Thank you, Thea.
All right, any other comments or questions?
Chair, did you want me to bring up the or the directions that I've typed up for the board to review, or?
Mike.
Whatever.
I think staff should receive formal direction, and I believe there was also discussion about taking public comment after the board provided the suggestional direction.
Are we gonna be able to see that?
Yeah, let's just go to public comment.
It's gonna be hard for us to see it here, is
Yeah.
the problem.
That's right.
No, these monitors aren't being
Yeah, it's
used
not
today,
working, so
so.
anyway.
It would just be that one.
Do we need to have it that formalized, or what are your
As long
thoughts?
as they understand, that's the main thing. I think you've got what you needed.
I'm gonna hate to be a stickler about this, but your charter specifies that board direction is taken by formal board action, and your good governance handbook specifies that direction to staff is taken by a majority vote of the board.
Yeah.
So while there are some times where we've maybe been a little loose, I think between those things and the need for staff clarity on this further direction, I think it would be important to memorialize that in some type of motion.
Maybe we can put it together while we take public input on it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, doesn't have to be that you've had it completely written out. If it could just be maybe enumerated as part of a formal board action, I think that would be sufficient. And you can rely on Kim and Kaylee to put that into the minutes that you'll then approve to ensure that it's consistent with the.
Kaylee, you wanna
the
just
action.
read to us what you've got? Well, I will try my best to be an auditory learner today.
The board provided the following direction to staff. A, return to the board to review vacation home rental ordinance for West Slope. B, return to the board in September to review code enforcement processes. C, return to the board in September for an annual update on the VHR ordinance. D, return to the board with a resolution of intent to review removal of options for setback exemptions in cannabis ordinance.
Okay, I'm glad that you had us do that then, because that isn't everything.
Yep, Dixon Property ROI then.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Dixon Properties ROI is after that.
I think that's what I have next, so I didn't know
Okay.
what the name of the parcel was. Return to the board to review a resolution of intent to review Dixon parcels.
Dickson.
Okay,
And it's parcels plural.
Parcels.
okay.
Two parcels.
Yeah.
And then direction on to parks, on Pine Hill Preserve properties.
Okay, and then I have, so E is the Dixon parcels, F is explore Pine Hill Preserve properties for developing walking and bike trails.
Do you want to just change that to give an update on Pine Hill Preserve, because you guys are already working on the trails, I get it in the management plan, so I
Yes.
didn't.
Yes,
but-
that would be our preference.
Yeah.
To
so
word
if you
it
could
that
change
way.
that part.
Provide an update on Pine Hill Preserve properties and ancillary items.
Yeah. 'Cause you're right, the trail is part of the management plan, and that's another thing we'll learn that day, is there's a management plan that we're supposed to follow. I learned that too. I'm a little confused though by the VHR, those first three items, I'm not sure
Yeah, I wanted
that those
to-
should be there like that.
I agree. In my opinion, it'd be nice to combine those three. I definitely would like to combine B and C. That was my intent in my annual update on that ordinance, would be to talk about the code enforcement process.
Okay.
And then I don't know about timing for reviewing the ordinance for the West Slope, if the board is comfortable with that occurring at the September hearing as well, or I guess we'd like further direction on that.
We gotta deal with something sooner than that.
Well,
It's not that far down the road.
Well, and it's not even that, it's just that, Karen, I feel like you guys are already working on VHRs and large parcels. I mean, you guys, we've already given direction to staff to start working on that. And so I'm not sure if this is a separate effort or just more of what we've already given direction on, that's where I'm a little,
Yeah.
we did already give direction to start looking into more of the ADUs and all the different types of VHRs that we have out there that aren't in our ordinances right now. I know staff is looking at that. Do we need more direction or just continue or anything?
Well, so the discussion about our ADU restriction on using them as a VHR or short-term rental, that's probably something we need to peel out and look at separately.
Okay.
We can certainly include it as we're looking at ag lodging and all that, but that's going to be a longer effort.
Okay.
So if it's, the board wants to consider that sooner rather than later, I would peel that specific
So
item
that,
out.
okay. And what words do you want it to say that makes it clear?
Review the county's ADU ordinance related to use of ADUs for short-term rentals.
There it is.
Okay.
There it is, okay.
But are we also prioritizing the west slope on that? Because TRPA's rules are very clear. I
Right.
mean, we're not going to change those, so.
Yeah, it has to be.
On the
it
west
has to be-
slope.
It has to be west slope,
Thank you.
yeah. And that way the ranch marketing and all that stuff is still ongoing, and that is gonna be a longer haul, so, okay.
I think the direction or the inclusion of B and C should be omitted from our direction because it's already in play, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
So now
So
can.
just change it to an annual update on the VHR ordinance? Or you're
No,
saying
you
get
can
rid of
just
it?
take B and
Strike
C
it out.
off.
Okay,
They don't need direction to do that. That's already their plan.
Yeah.
so would you like me to reread what I have to make
Please.
sure?
Yeah.
Okay, so A has changed to return to the board to review the county's ADU ordinance for use of ADU as short-term rentals on the west slope.
Perfect.
C, or B now, is return to the board with a resolution of intent to review removal of options for setback exemptions in cannabis ordinance. C is return to the board with a resolution of intent to review Dixon parcels in El Dorado for rezone. And D is provide an update on Pine Hill Preserve properties and ancillary items.
Perfect. Thank you, Kaylee.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for helping us formulate that.
All right.
You gonna take public comment?
Yeah, public comment, I guess on the
Yeah, you guys said you would.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, on the direction.
We are now taking public comments specifically regarding item 29, direction. Individuals will have 3 minutes to address the board. The timer will notify you when your time is up. Public comment will be taken first from those participating in the boardroom and then from those on Zoom. For those participating by Zoom, please make sure you unmute yourself when called upon. If you're joining by phone, press *9 to indicate a desire to comment. If you're joining by Zoom, press the raise hand button. Please voluntarily state your name for the record. Seeing no public comment from the boardroom, taking public comment from online participants, taking public comment from Chris.
Thank you so much for taking public comment on this part of the agenda item. I'm looking at the motions to be made. The first part, return to the board to review county's ADU ordinance for use of ADU for short-term rentals on the west slope. I completely understand the intent. I think this will be a controversial item, and certainly it's not going to be easy in order to convince the public, especially if communities that are already settled, that this is what's necessary. B, return of the board with the resolution of intent to review the removal of options for setback exemptions in cannabis ordinance. It was very good discussion. Again, I'm not certain if the setback exemptions are the only thing that should be modified. It should be a broader review of the existing cannabis ordinance, considering the bus stops portion. Again, I don't know why you took it down, because now I don't have it to use, but essentially, let me see if I can bring up the C, return to the board with a resolution of intent to review the Dixon parcels for a rezone. When I was on the planning commission, as George remembers, we had some one-ups of this. We did, I think, 3. It was 3 or 4. One of them was in the Cameron Park area related to single-family residential, and there was one that was multifamily with a single-family house on it that they wanted to change. We took care of that. Also, I believe there was one just north of Placerville because of past actions was not appropriate, and the people were put on a bad situation in terms of, I believe they wanted to do a swimming pool, and we got that changed. So I believe that you can do the what-ifs based on application. And then finally, the update of the Pine Hill Preserve. As Supervisor Parlin knows, this is a long-standing issue with a lot of camping and illegal camping, homelessness, fires, potentially. This will be a good thing on that. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Now taking comments from Lee Tannenbaum.
Good morning again, supervisors. Still Lee Tannenbaum, still private citizen. Just wanted to talk about the proposal to eliminate the setback waivers from the county cannabis ordinance and respond to the justification it's being offered, which appears to rest on ROI analysis. Let me be clear, a waiver is not a financial investment. It's not a budget line. It's not a subsidy. It's not a grant. It's a basic land use tool, a regulatory safety valve designed to allow common sense discretion where strict setbacks don't make sense. Removing that discretion under the guise of fiscal justification is deeply misleading. An ROI is meant to assess public expenditures or economic benefit. There's no expenditure here. The waiver process doesn't cost the county money, it saves it. It prevents unnecessary appeals, lawsuits, and artificial constraints on viable parcels. In fact, removing waivers will likely reduce the number of viable cultivation sites in the county, especially among small rural landowners. That means less investment, fewer jobs, and ultimately less tax revenue. If the board genuinely believes in measured fact-based governance, then the removal of waivers deserves a full and transparent policy discussion, not a cherry-picked narrative. Waivers exist for a reason because one-size-fits-all regulations don't work on every property, and because the voters of this county, the agencies you oversee, have consistently supported a case-by-case approach, grounded in facts, not fear, and not politics. Removing this tool doesn't make us safer, it doesn't save the county money, and it absolutely doesn't reflect good land use policy. It reflects rigidity, it reflects exclusion, and it sends a message that we no longer trust our own processes or our planning department to evaluate projects on their merits. I urge you to reject this change, or at very least, admit what it is, a quiet rollback of the ordinance under the false banner of efficiency. I'd also like to suggest that if you're going to open the ordinance, that we look at the ordinance again, as we did 2 years ago, and fix the problems in the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Now taking comments from Sue.
Hi, sorry I missed a lot of the discussion because my connection died. I would just ask that there be more transparency when you do these projects, that you stop calling them updates and changes, because there's review, changes, and update doesn't really explain what's happening, and so people don't really dial in. But I would ask that you, when you're doing the ADUs, that at least in high fire areas or anything at a certain area that are 1 acre or more for ADUs, that you put back the 30-foot setbacks. That was what CAL FIRE requires, because that's the safe distance between two buildings is 60 feet, that one won't explode the other into a catastrophic fire. I had a neighbor whose house caught on fire, and luckily we were 60 feet apart, and it didn't impact anybody but that one house. The other part, I wish that list was still there, but I just, on the properties that, again, I looked at El Dorado and how it's becoming a number game for planning, and I really think they need to be required to go out. That whole area was over-densified during the 2015, and so many times, so many of us tried to bring the attention to the board at that time, and were dismissed. And unfortunately, if you really know the general plan, in 2004 when it was adopted, they did the general plan overlays, but a lot of the zoning didn't miss. And what they said they would do, there's a policy that has 19 criteria that when you change the land use or the zoning to match, it would be reviewed individually. Well, that never happened because they did the overhaul of the whole general plan, and it still hasn't been done. So none of this has been analyzed per CEQA. They were supposed to be done no matter what, individually, and it's become a big cluster for our county not to have addressed that. And I don't see why it would take an act of Congress. I think when I look at how dense all of that is now been designated, I think that needs to be seriously looked at for that whole area. You cannot put any more traffic on that road. And if you care about the community, our general plan has 11 elements, not just one. And unfortunately, on your list, you've got cultural resources, sustainability, and scenic highway. Those things are all on the bottom, and they were mostly done back in 2006. So I just asked this board to put the promises that they made to this county about implementing this thing in a way that people had expected when they voted for it back in 2004, instead of changing it constantly. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Now taking comments from Linda Campbell.
Hey everyone, Linda Campbell, El Dorado Hills. First, I guess when something like this is being written up, since it's not available, it really is helpful to have it visible still for people to be able to see and refer to. I kind of wrote down a couple items, but just for consideration. So items A and C, Chris actually reminded me even though it says return to the board, I think it would be helpful to ensure that the Planning Commission reviews those, because they can offer input and insight potentially to make those a little bit more robust. And then on item D, it says provide an update, but it doesn't include anything about the suggestion from Supervisor Parlin to evaluate them for recreational development options. So that could be something helpful in there. So it's not just an update on the properties, but it's with the intent of looking at it for potential recreational items, even if it's trails or pathways. So that could be something helpful to refine in the final solution on this. Thank you.
Now taking comments from iPhone.
Hi, good afternoon, or are we still in the morning? Good morning. So I'm going to read part of a post that Lee Tannenbaum did. As far as this item's concerned, the public was not notified. The agenda does not make any mention that the long-range planning work plan, the same one that sets the course for development, zoning, and resource planning, is being replaced. And because this is billed as an informational item, you, the county, avoids the public noticing, avoids public input, and avoids accountability. We weren't informed. This item was hidden in a way that's very deceptive, in my opinion, and we demand transparency, properly agendized items, and proper notice. Right, this item is making major changes to the county's long-range planning process. So that's what I have to say about that. Also, in terms of the cannabis item, I agree with all of Lee's comments. I also think that we need to fix the ordinance. I'm not sure what went on a couple of years ago when the ordinance was supposed to be reviewed and we had ad hoc committees, because we still have the same issue with the premise versus property line, which is the major issue, and I believe the impetus for several of the appeals. So that's what I have to say today. Thanks, guys. This is Tracy Doyle, a member of Vice President of Patriots of El Dorado County Political Action Committee.
Thank you, Tracy.
There is no additional public comment.
All right, so I'll bring it back to the board for any other future comments or discussions, but I think, can we have Rob answer some of those questions, or?
Is there a specific question?
Yeah, I don't think there's, no, okay, all right.
I'm ready to move the item as we discussed,
Ready.
Kaylee typed up.
Okay, second. All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thanks, Kevin.
Mr. Chair, maybe we could just take a 5-minute break and then staff can swap out and we can do our 11 o'clock?
Yep, perfect. All right, so we're back from our break. We'll move to the 11 a.m. time allocation. Snow removal update presentation, item 32.
And since it is snowing outside, this should be a perfect presentation. Yeah.
Item 32 comes from the Department of Transportation, recommending the board receive and file a snow removal update presentation.
Good morning,
Thank you,
Board.
Brian.
Brian Mullins, Deputy Director of Maintenance and Operations. Thought today was just an appropriate day to have a snow removal update. Weather is just perfect for it. So, well, I'm here today to give you an update on the past, present, and future of snow removal operations in the basin. Due to the geographic nature of the county, snow removal is divided between the western slope and the Tahoe Basin. The Tahoe Basin unit covers everything from Tahoma to Myers and west to the Strawberry area. The area is divided into 10 zones, 10th zone being the Tahoma and West Shore area. For transportation to run a full snow removal shifts, 12 staff members are needed for a South Lake Tahoe day shift, 11 staff members for a South Lake Tahoe night shift, and 3 are required in the West Shore Tahoma area. In South Lake Tahoe, there are 18 full-time highway maintenance worker allocations. Of those 18 positions, 3 are sent to Tahoma, leaving 15 positions in South Lake Tahoe. Therefore, there is a staffing shortage of 8 positions. We currently have 4 full-time positions open at our Shikori facility. Those are opened and will be interviewing in June. Extra help snow removal workers are utilized to aid the permanent staff and ensure transportation has enough staff for both shifts. Each year, transportation has up to 10 snow removal extra help positions allocated. However, 10 have not been filled in over a decade. We have not been able to fill the full 10. Last year, I believe we had 8. Transportation's goal is to plow each road within 24 to 48 hours, depending on staffing levels, severity of the storm, and equipment locations. So summarizing winter, this past winter, which clearly is not done. Transportation ended the winter with six extra help snow removal workers. The extra help positions ended April 4th and are funded by the road fund. Extra help snow removal positions received an additional cash incentive of $230.77 per pay period. 4 966 rental loaders were utilized throughout the winter. The rental program was funded by $250 of discretionary TOT.
250,000?
Excuse me?
250,000?
Correct. Transportation owns the blowers and the plow attachments to those rental loaders. Equipment we did not experience any catastrophic failures this past year. However, 3 of the 4 mountain blowers are from the 1970s. And 3 of our graders in Shikori are from 2005. Looking forward, transportation will start recruiting for extra help in June and July with a desired start date of the first week of November. Staff will secure snow rental houses for Tahoma and South Lake Tahoe prior to September, looking at a larger rental in South Lake Tahoe due to the low staffing success in the Tahoe Basin and our goal to hire from the west slope and have them stay up here. Just due to the workforce up here, we're having a very difficult time getting people from the basin area. Also, one mountain blower on order has a current ETA of October. We have been told in July that it will be here in July. And it looks like we're going to avoid the current tariffs that are in effect between the US and Canada. So that was tariffs, we're looking at an additional 200,000 at the current rate, but it looks like we're going to avoid those. So that's a good savings. And then I believe late June, we will be reviewing the no parking ordinance prior to next winter to bring it in line. The discussion will be to bring it in line with Tahoma, which is no parking on the street from certain dates, not just when snow removal conditions exist. One additional mountain blower is on order and expected to be received by the end of 2026. 2 replacement graders with plows and gates are anticipated by the end of this year. We're hoping November, December that we can get those new graders in operation before the snow intensifies. $250,000 for the continued loader rental program. We also have 2 replacement sanders and 2 replacement plows for a total of $250,000. $337,000 budgeted for extra snow removal workers. $481,000 budgeted for sand, salt, hauling of the sand and salt, rental houses, snow stakes, beet juice, cutting edges. One interesting thing that we probably don't know is our salt is now coming out of Utah, is the closest availability. So there's a lot of trucking fees. The salt remains to be about the pretty stable pricing on salt, but the trucking now from Utah to the South Lake Tahoe facility. We used to be able to pull out of Nevada. Nevada is exclusive to NDOT, so there's nothing coming out of Nevada or the Bay Area for us. We did double our budget for snow staking. We've switched out the. There were some thin poles that we tried. We were not very successful, so we went to what's called a Carson pole. It's the same pole that the Caltrans uses on the highway. We'll have a very aggressive snow poling campaign later this summer and into early winter. And I'm sorry, someone was changing that. Appreciate that. Here on the left is the snow pattern zones for the South Lake, and to your right is the patterns for the Tahoma area. And that's all I've got for you. Any questions?
All right, so I'll bring it back to the board. Any questions from Ron? Or comments?
Good job by all.
Yeah.
I do just want to note for the record that the 2 blowers that you are referring to were purchased from Measure S funds.
Correct, yes. Measure S has been very, very helpful to us in getting some of this very old equipment replaced and helping us with making strides forward with our road system up here that's greatly in need of some attention. So it's greatly appreciated. It's great. We continue to have a great relationship with the committee and been resolving issues as they come up, and it's a great group to work with.
Yeah, I got a question, Brian. I know you have your brush crew, and is there any possibility you could take a lot of the guys that are especially removing brush in the wintertime, there's not really feasible, to help that with your snow removal staff, so you have an adequate employees to help that?
Well, we do pull from all of West Slope, and it may be from the sign shop, the bridge crew, the brushing crew, the road crew, depending on what our needs are on the West Slope. So we do currently use them when we are in winter operations or storm removal operations, we will take them when the conditions are not conducive to brushing on the west slope.
Right,
So
okay.
we do use them.
All right, good. Any other questions?
I just, again, good job. Mother Nature's unpredictable, and
Yeah.
what you have to deal with is a lot. So, great job to everybody out there makes it happen.
Yeah, especially you're doing a great job with less. So I just want to thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate the continued support from the board. It's greatly appreciated.
Any other comments from the board?
I just have one question here for you, and that is, you said that there are 18 total employees up here in the basin, of which 3 are up in Tahoma, which leaves 15 here on the South Shore. And then when you talk about the extra help, those 10 positions, is that in addition to the 15?
Yes, yes.
And so of the 15 permanent positions that we have up here, 11 are filled? Is that correct? Did you say that there were 4 that were
There are
unfilled?
There are currently, yes, there are currently 4 unfilled full-time positions at the Shikori location. And we're working on interviews coming up in here, I believe, in early June for those positions, along with starting the recruiting process in June, July for the extra help. And we hope to recruit the 10 this year. I mean, that's always our goal, is to maximize those allocations, but unfortunately, we did select, out of 42 candidates last year, we did select 10, 3 pulled out. So we ended up with the 7 to make us through the winter, and it worked. We did have what we would call a relatively light year up here. We had a couple challenging storms, but nothing major. But we're hoping to fulfill that 10 allocations with staffing or extra help out of the West Slope Division.
And I know that when we were struggling at the beginning of winter, and it was well known in the basin that there were a lot of positions that were unfilled, and therefore there was a lot of talk about what that effect would be. I kind of lost my thought where I was going with that. So, let me back up just for a second. And let me say that I think that the local crew just really did a tremendous job this winter. I heard nothing but comments from the public saying, wow, this has really been good. So I want all of DOT up here in the basin to know that their efforts were noticed and appreciated, and up in Tahoma as well. As a matter of fact, the full-time person that they hired up there became somewhat of a social media hit when he introduced himself to the community in like a 3-piece suit sitting in the plow, so it was kind of cool. But anyway, I just want to let you guys know that you really did a tremendous job. Is paying the extra help, the bonus, the $237 for working in the basin every paycheck, is that helping? Because I think that was something you changed this year, and do you anticipate that? How are we going to continue to not have this problem, I guess, is the better question.
Well, yes, to answer your question, the incentive program is helping. More is better, and I'm hoping that that the union can come together and sign the agreement at some point, and the guys will have that additional 4 to 6%. That's going to help also. It's still a challenging area to recruit out of, and every little bit helps. So hopefully introducing this down into the West Slope to be able to recruit and have that staff come up here and work, we're hoping that's enough incentive, but we'll see.
And then I do remember the question I was trying to get at, and that is the city, when we were going through all those woes, came up with an idea that we have a pool that all of the different agencies can pull from. So that would mean even Caltrans, but certainly the city and the county, we would have a pool of drivers that just get verified through one process, as opposed to all three of us are all going out and trying to get the same people. And we're sending them through, could be multiple screenings to see if they're eligible. So the idea that we have one pool that everybody qualifies into, and then each of our agencies can hire from it, is that something that you think would be beneficial, and is that something that we would consider pursuing?
Yeah, I think it could be beneficial. I'm not sure how that would exactly transpire, through the whole HR process, the hiring process. It would be nice if, the city has extra candidates and they can pass that on to us and say, hey, that we know that the county is still looking for additional snow removal operators for the season. That would be helpful. Caltrans has a very large pool to pull out of the Sacramento area, and that's what they do to supplement snow removal operations up here. They pull from the valley. They have a very large complex, commercial kitchen, housing, so they are able to staff up as the storms become bigger throughout the year. We are trying a similar model with trying to hire from the West Slope and transport them up here, house them, and use them for snow removal operations so we can max out that 10 allocations. So that is a big push for us this year. We're going to try that model.
That's great. Well, and I want to thank HR also, because we realized early on it was taking up to 3 months to onboard these extra help, which time is ticking. 3 months could be an entire winter.
Season's over.
Right? Season's over. So want to thank HR for whatever magic they did behind the scenes to really improve that. But it does seem like a pool where we can have pre-qualified drivers that we can just pull from. Might be worth it for both entities, the city and the county.
That's something we can look into, working with the city especially.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
One other question, Ryan, are you still having issues with housing up here?
I believe we've secured the Tahoma house already, the same house that we had yesterday. We are either looking for an additional house on top of the one that we already have, and looking for either a larger house or a second additional house. We've had our challenges with that. A lot of people don't want to rent, out for 6 months. They like that weekend VRBO type scenario, but the houses that we currently have, the people are very pleased with the staff that are staying in there. The houses are well taken care of and have invited us back year after year. So we're just looking for that one additional house or possibly one large house for the South Lake area.
Just curious. Sounds good. Yeah, good. Thank you. Any other questions? Good.
Public comment, did we already do that?
Yeah, no, not yet.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to public comment.
We are now taking public comments specifically regarding item 32. Individuals will have 3 minutes to address the board. The timer will notify you when your time is up. Public comment will be taken first from those participating in the boardroom and then from those participating through Zoom. For those participating by Zoom, please make sure you unmute yourself when called upon. If you're joining by phone, press *9 to indicate a desire to comment. If you're joining by Zoom, press the raise hand button. Please voluntarily state your name for the record. See no public comment from the boardroom. Now taking public comment from online participants. There's no public comment.
All right, this is.
Because we did such a great job.
Repeat that after you turn the mic on.
Yeah. Hand raised. Can I go ahead?
What's that? Yeah, go ahead.
You
Yeah.
jinxed it, Raphael.
Now taking public comment from Chris.
Of course.
Thank you, Brian, for an excellent report. I just wanted to highlight a few things. I was up in the basin, as I told Supervisor Lane a few weeks ago for the Snowshoe Thompson event, so it really ties in to this discussion about snow removal. I believe that the coordination between Caltrans and the erosion control staffing is critical in any snow operation. As you've brought up, board, the Caltrans also looks for staffing on a seasonal basis, but also the coordination of the roads themselves and the ability of the county to be able to maneuver their equipment on existing Caltrans roadways is very, very important. But there was no real discussion about what avalanche, earth, and rock slides, what they create in terms of impediments for doing a general snow removal operation. And I thought I would just highlight, if Brian had some comment on that, I would be respectfully accepted. Also, I was able to drive around and saw Christmas Valley in Myers, Angora, Tahoe Keys. These are all unique locations that require unique solutions to snow removal and the removal of the and the movement of our equipment throughout the communities. And lastly, pothole repair is seasonal. So I noted out there that even when we have snow, there's potholes that have to be taken care of for public safety, and also then seasonal pothole repair going into the summer season. I wanted to highlight that as also a critical part of being able to safely move around in the basin. Supervisor Lane, thank you so much for your efforts in terms of Measure S and the money that's been received. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
There is no additional public comment.
All right, so this is just kind of an update, receiving in files, so, anyway, thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna move to item 31. And it's Memorial Day proclamation.
Item 31 comes from Supervisor Turnbull recommending the board adopt and authorize the chair to sign a proclamation recognizing May 26, 2025 as Memorial Day in El Dorado County, a date to remember and honor those that have died, those that are still missing, and all who mourn the loss.
Yeah. In 1868, Memorial Day was officially designated as a day of honor for those fallen to service our country during the Civil War. Eventually, Memorial Day was extended, including fallen soldiers from all American wars in 1971. Congress declared it a national holiday, changing the observance from May 30th to the last Monday in May. Each year, many communities across the U.S. hold parades or ceremonies to recognize veterans, active service members, and other military personnel. It is also a day for loved ones to visit gravesites for those who have lost and place flowers, flags, and other decorations in their memory. Each year, a wreath is placed on the tomb of the unknown soldier. It is a ceremony held at Arlington Cemetery in Virginia, where Supervisor Parlin visited that when we were in D.C. In 2000, Congress signed the National Monument Remembrance Act into law. From the point forward, citizens were encouraged to pause for a moment of silence in remembrance of those who died in service to our country at 3 p.m. local time each Memorial Day. If you plan to fly a flag on Memorial Day, it should be flown at half-staff from sunrise to noon, and then it should be briskly raised to the top of the staff until sunset. A celebration will be held El Dorado County Veterans Day, Memorial 360 Fair Lane, Placerville at 11 a.m. on Monday, May 26, 2025, to honor the following El Dorado County veterans. Now I'm going to read the proclamation, but Supervisor Farrell will do the presentation on Memorial Day. In honor of those who answered the call, whereas On this Memorial Day, we remember all who have died, on those still missing, all who mourn. And on this day, especially the citizens of El Dorado County remember our fallen sons and daughters who have given their lives defending freedom for all our nation's conflicts. Whereas, on the solemn day in America unite remembrance of our country's fallen, we also pray for our military personnel and their families, our veterans, and for all who lost loved ones. As a grateful nation, we forever carry the selfless sacrifice of our fallen heroes in our hearts, and we share the task of caring for those they left behind. Whereas, in our charge of preserve liberty to advance justice and sow the seeds of peace, with courage and devotion worthy of the heroes we remember today, let us rededicate ourselves to those unending tasks. Now, therefore, it proclaimed the Board of Supervisors of El Dorado County do hereby proclaim Memorial Day, May 26, 2025, as a day of hope and permanent peace, and let us recommit to upholding the enduring principles that our country lives for and that our fellow citizens have fought and died for. Above all, we honor those we have lost by living up the ideas and die defending. Passed and adopted by the Board of Supervisors of the County of El Dorado County as a regular meeting held the 13th day of 2025. So I'll bring it back to the board for any discussions.
I think it sums it up and says it very well. Appreciate Supervisor Ferrero going to be there at Memorial Day and read the proclamation at the celebration. So,
Very good.
It's going to be an honor to do it.
Yeah.
It is quite an
Yeah,
honor.
it is an honor. So I'll open it up to public comment.
We are now taking public comments specifically regarding item 31. Individuals will have 3 minutes to address the board. The timer will notify you when your time is up. Public comment will be taken first from those participating in the boardroom and then from those participating through Zoom. For those participating by Zoom, please make sure you unmute yourself when called upon. If you're joining by phone, press *9 to indicate a desire to comment. If you're joining by Zoom, press the raise hand button. Please voluntarily state your name for the record. Seeing no public comment in the boardroom, taking public comment from online participants. There's no public comment.
So I'll bring it back to the board.
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. All
Motion
right,
passes 5-0.
all right.
Very good.
All right, now we'll go to closed session item. The board.
You want to do your to and from?
Is there going to be any report out? No report out? All right, so let's go ahead and do our twos and froms now.
Not done them in a while. We didn't do them last time, right?
Yeah, we didn't
Okay,
do
because
them
I'm looking at my list going, it looks long, but I
know,
will
well,
tell you
We have a lot
everything.
to talk about. but
Okay.
I'm going to be kind of short and sweet.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So let's start to my right. Greg, are you ready?
Yeah. Yes. As I mentioned before, and I won't go over it again, but yeah, the CSAC Legislative Conference, the theme of the 3 days was the state's overreach and unfunded mandates. So hopefully we can make some progress on that. We did get to hear our insurance commissioner speak, Ricardo Lara, and he gave some glimmers of hope, but he actually made a statement that said by the middle of next year, the insurance companies will be back competing for our business. So, and I wrote that down, which is, it caught my ear, but we'll see.
We'll make him accountable for
Yes,
that.
yeah, we'll remember that one. Attended multiple meetings. Last Saturday, attended the a Firewise community event hosted at the Murray Homestead Park in El Dorado Hills, and it was the homeowners associations of Highland View, Starling Shire, and Highland Hills. And had presentation from the fire department. OWOPR is pretty, and there's some vendors there that sell home hardening supplies, things like that. It's pretty well attended. On Sunday, I had the honor of speaking to Boys Team Charity in El Dorado Hills on the importance of serving and philanthropy. And my son was actually in one of the first classes for BTC when it started in El Dorado Hills, so it's an honor. And then that's about it. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure that the Board of Supervisors is up to speed with what we're doing in the Emerald Bay project. That's a transit pilot project that will start July 15th and go through October 15th. It is a pilot project. It will restrict all of the illegal parking, and we will provide transit as an option. The pilot project is originally being funded by the League to Save Lake Tahoe and the Tahoe Fund. Each of those two groups are in for $150,000. And then we have some additional money that's going to pay for barricades up at the Emerald Bay, so it's impossible to park illegally. We will have CHP law enforcement up there, starting on July 15th, issuing tickets and towing cars that manage to park illegally. But really what we want is not to punish people for parking illegally. We really want them to take alternate forms of transit. It's good for the environment. It's good for the stewardship of that precious location, Emerald Bay. So I just wanted to make sure the board was up to speed on that. We had an all-hands meeting a week ago, which is where 45 people come together from about 15 different agencies. We all make sure we're moving in lockstep. And we will have another all-hands meeting in June. If any of my colleagues are interested in wanting to be a part of that, please let me know and I will make sure that you get invited. Thank you.
What were the dates of the project? July 15th
July
to
15th,
August?
October 15th.
Oh, October, okay.
Yeah, 3 months.
So, District 3?
Yeah, I've been attending numerous things, mostly staff-related, but I do have a meeting tomorrow with Caltrans District 3 Director, and one of the things that,
Sorry, these buttons are different than ours.
one of the things that we will be trying to discuss and see just how much the state knows about is the low-income housing projects on a state grant-funded road that has been identified as a pinch point for evacuation. So I'm going to try to help facilitate some discussion there and maybe some proper planning moving forward. But other than that, just normal things as usual. Glad you guys had a good time and got home safely from DC. So
Yeah.
appreciate you going and representing El Dorado County.
Okay, Lori?
Yeah, a couple things to see for your awareness. I had a meeting with a representative from Kids Sports USA, and he's going to be bringing a big festival back to Henningsen Lotus Park that they used to have years ago. It kind of faded away, sponsors changed and everything, but it's going to be back next year, and I think it's going to be really big. So, and we'll see where the potential goes for sponsorships from there on out. And then Supervisor Turnbull and I did attend the Sheriff's One Pill Can Kill presentation at Union Mine High School. I think he was getting to all the high schools. I don't know if he's made it or not, but yeah, but I think the messaging is really critical for.
It was a great presentation. I was on the other side of the gym. I saw you guys.
Okay,
Oh, you
yeah,
were there,
and I think that messaging
stand
is
together.
not just, but it's not just important for the high school. I'd like to see that they take some messaging and get it out, on social media for other folks that, because we did have that incident, in Tahoe about a year ago or so, and it's a message that needs to get out broadly. So I really appreciate the sheriff taking the lead on that. And then I've been having meetings with our boating rafting representatives and working with state parks. State Parks is changing the permitting process on the North and Middle Fork. And so I'm working with our park staff to see what we can do as a county to maybe help take some of that on. And of course, we'll talk about reimbursement, so don't worry about that, because that's always on the top of our minds. And those conversations are ongoing. But we want to just make sure that we're doing that with everyone together, and so it's a big group. And then I did attend this was a couple weeks ago, the Ag Roundtable Dinner at the American Legion Hall. The messaging, I think, from the speakers was, to me, it was a little concerning. And so if you hear anything from ag representatives or the ag community, I would suggest reaching out to our ag commissioner and to discuss that with her, because she was there also and heard the message. And there was some lot of chatter about that afterward. I had a lot of people talk to me about it, and I went, I don't know. Want to thank park staff. There was a big community-wide thing, Sunshine and whatever, I don't remember the title of it, but Park specifically went to Bradford Park in Shingle Springs and had a community group show up and do a plant landscaping project, and it was raining on them, and I just popped in to say hi, so I, was like, thank you for all you guys are doing, but it was just nice to see that at one of our parks. And then from there, I popped over to the Midtown Mall because OWAPR and the Fire Safe Council were having that big one in Placerville. And boy, that was well done. Lots of information handed out. And despite the rain, the public seemed to be showing up pretty good. So that was nice. And then so far, steering committee meetings are still ongoing. They're looking for a funding source for their facilitator. And I think we're getting close to figuring that out. And they might be having a full collaborative meeting looking at mid-June. So I'll share that with you if that does happen. We haven't had a collaborative meeting in quite some time.
Yes, Supervisor Turnbull and I did have a meeting with our new force supervisor,
Yes.
and we did talk about maybe rolling that all into one meeting with OWAPR. I mean, it's the same meeting.
Yes and yes,
Yes
and
and no,
yes.
but
Yes and yes.
we can
I
invite a few
know.
other people and just do it once.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll see about that. That's a bigger conversation. And then I had a meeting with PARC, PARC, Protect American River Canyon, or Coalition, I guess. They're looking at a walking non-motorized bridge project across the American River. And as a result of that, I'm meeting with our community groups on the El Dorado County side, because this group's over on the Placer County side. So I'll be setting up a meeting with our ARCC group, American River Community Coalition group, to get their thoughts on it. There's some social media out there already on it, and I'm like, okay, I was trying to have some talks first, but we'll go big and have some kind of a community-wide meeting once I get an understanding of what's been done in the past, because it sounds to me that the Board of Supervisors actually wrote a letter of support for the project in 2017, and I just found out about that. So I'm like, okay, I need to understand that a little bit better too. And then Supervisor Turnbull and I did go to Cap, had a lot of meetings with agencies, legislators. It's always a hold on to your hat time, but and got a little sightseeing in between, so it was really nice. And Arlington, I think that was the first time I've ever been to Arlington.
Unreal.
It was just, it's overwhelming to be there. I can't even explain it. So it really did tie in really well with our proclamation. And then
And it was Robert E. Lee's property.
yes,
which a
yeah,
lot of
they
people
tell
don't
you
know.
that on the tour if you get on the little bus tour. And then I did attend the American Society for Public Administration's annual awards dinner. I got to go accept the award on behalf of RCRC. They received an award for intergovernment cooperation, and I guess I was the only person. No, I'm kidding. I'm on a lot of their committees and stuff, and plus I'm nearby, so I got to go to the dinner and meet a lot of neat organizations. It was really fun. Good evening, and we have an executive committee meeting tomorrow for RCRC, so I'll actually take the award back to them. It's been at my house. It looks nice there. Water agency meeting, we adopted our budget, approved an MOU with the county to do the study for the town of El Dorado drainage study. So we did approve that, wanted you all to know that. And then we held our second workshop on the strategic plan, so that's going well. Mountain counties, we're getting ready, did some prep work. Next week, we're going down to have a legislative advocacy day. So that'll be next week. It's a full day thing, and I haven't gone before, so I'm excited about that. And then lastly, yesterday, First Five El Dorado Commission meeting, we approved our budget, and we also approved the action plan that goes with our strategic plan on how to implement it. So lots going on. All the committees are back in full swing right now.
Yeah, okay, all right. So held a lot of meetings with staff, a lot of the concerns and stuff going on. We got a budget hearing and a meeting tomorrow. We're going to start that. I think it's a 2-day or 1 day. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, met with the new U.S. Forest Ranger that represents El Dorado County. He seems like he's He's very, very supportive and very approachable, and I think we can get some of the things done. Went back to Kappa Cap, and one of the things that I represented is wildfire. And one of the biggest things that I pushed is good forest management. Basically, and make sure that we have enough adequate equipment or whatever to be able to fight these fires. Because this is something that a lot of the equipment is getting older and stuff like that these days, and pushing that. And then also with these fire stations that are sitting empty is to try to push something forward that we can actually man them. So that's one of the things that I also talked about, and especially insurance costs, because insurance costs are so high, which is impacting a lot of our residents that live in the rural area. One also that I also pushed with the individual assistance that's still impacting the people that live in Grizzly Flat. And we're also talking about maybe grant money for fire hardened. When they're fire hardened these homes, there's grant money to be able to support that and help them along, because it's going to be kind of expensive even on a 750 square foot home. So a lot of good things happened. I kept pushing. I want to bring a mill back to El Dorado County. I talked to Kevin Kiley, and I said we got to get at least a guarantee of 20 years of product, so we could push that issue to bring it back here. Even if it isn't Sierra Pacific, it could be somebody else, because I think it's going to help and boom our economy, especially, and support our county too, with high-paying jobs, and especially when it comes to biomass and all the other different issues to be able to prevent wildfires in our county. So anyway, a lot of things are moving forward, a lot of good things. I did have time to go on a little bit of tour with my son, so that was really great, visiting some of the different monuments and stuff. So it was really overwhelming, is all I can say.
Yeah, you're a freshman.
Yeah, I was a freshman. I was very much overwhelmed. So, but it was a great event. It really was.
Yep.
So anyway, all right. So I'm moving the.
Just a quick update on next week's meeting. It is packed, so packed that we're starting early. We're going to start at 8:30. 8:30. We'll promptly convene to to close session, and then come back and start the regular meeting. So
Okay.
be prepared.
All right. Okay. Everybody okay with that? 8:30? All right.
Do we have a choice?
No.
See? Don't ask.
Well, I just asked, even though. All right. So, all right, well, so we'll go to closed session. The board will now recess into closed sessions to hear item 33 as specified on the agenda. Anyone who wishes to provide comments concerning these matters may do so at this time. Please open it up to public comment.
We are now taking public comments specifically regarding item 33.
Mark, you got it.
Individuals will have 3 minutes to address the board. The timer will notify you when your time is up. Public comment will be taken first from those participating in the boardroom, and then from those participating through Zoom. For those participating by Zoom, please make sure you unmute yourself when called upon. If you're joining by phone, press *9 to indicate a desire to comment. If you're joining by Zoom, press the raise hand button. Please voluntarily state your name for the record. Seeing no public comment from the boardroom, now taking public comment from online participants. There's no public comment.
All right. Should we close that door?
Yeah, just give us a minute
Okay.
to get set up, and then let's kill the Zoom.